Chapter 2028. Yin Nanxian, Zhao Feifei Yin Beifei. Haha, we finally meet. The timing couldn't be better. Instantly, new and old grudges surged in his heart. In his previous life, Yin Nanxian had once taken in Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian had become a disciple of the Tian Luo sect. Yin Nanxian seemed to think highly of Jiang Tian and approved of him. He poured cultivation resources into Jiang Tian as if they were free. He taught him everything he knew and told him everything he knew. In fact, when Zhao Feifei had feelings for Jiang Tian, his son Yin Beifei had a conflict with Jiang Tian out of jealousy and hatred. Yin Nanxian still stood on Jiang Tian's side to uphold justice. He was furious and scolded his son, punishing Yin Beifei to reflect on his mistakes for 3 years. Because of all these reasons, Jiang Tian in his previous life was extremely grateful to Yin Nanxian. He saw him as a father and brother. Not only was he grateful, he also trusted him. However, very quickly, Jiang Tian also faced the cruelest blow since he stepped into the cultivation world. It was the saddest and most tragic disillusionment. When Jiang Tian was about to break through, Yin Nanxian lowered his status and took the initiative to protect him. However, he was actually after Jiang Tian's body and wanted to occupy it. Previously, he gave many benefits because he wanted to push Jiang Tian's cultivation level up as soon as possible, so that he could possess him. His grace to Jiang Tian was also to dispel his wariness. If Jiang Tian had not received the blessing of Zhao Xueqing's providence in his previous life, he would have died on the spot. Although Jiang Tian was not afraid of death and had great providence to escape, Yin Nanxian still sent out countless disciples to hunt Jiang Tian down. They turned the entire Saint Origin world upside down for more than 10 years. During those years, Jiang Tian was like a lone wolf. No, it should be said that he was like a stray dog or a rat crossing the street. He hid from place to place and lived a precarious and dark life. What made Jiang Tian even more miserable was that he was unable to track down Jiang Tian. Yin Nanxian had targeted Jiang Tian's relatives and friends. All of Jiang Tian's friends in Saint Origin world were killed by him, including Lin Yang's family. There was only one reason, and that was that they knew Jiang Tian. Yin Nanxian's actions were not just to vent his anger, but also to force Jiang Tian to come out. He firmly believed that Jiang Tian was a kind-hearted person who valued friendship and righteousness. He would not drag out an ignoble existence and watch as his friends and family were killed. However, he had underestimated Jiang Tian's desire to live. Jiang Tian knew that he would die if he went out, so he chose to protect himself. Although it was shameful, he still managed to keep his life. Countless nights, Jiang Tian recalled how Yin Nanxian had fooled and deceived him. Crazy hatred gnawed at his soul like a poisonous snake, burning his anger. More than that, there was guilt and self-doubt. Many times, he felt that he was worse than a beast. In order to save his own life, he silently watched his friends and family being killed. The torture of his soul and the interrogation of his soul made him unable to calm down. There were several times when he almost went crazy. Coincidentally, it was as if there was the hand of a supreme god that was invisibly fiddling with everyone's fate. Jiang Tian met Yin Nanxian when he was preparing to go to Saint Origin world in the carriage of Zhuma Star. At that time, Yin Nanxian had just reached Divine Transformation Realm, and Jiang Tian had the strength to kill him. However, even though Jiang Tian's hatred was monstrous, he still did not take action. The reason was that Jiang Tian was waiting for the opening of the Devil's Back territory today, waiting for the appearance of the Devil's Claws and the quasi-immortal tree, so that he could obtain the opportunity to reach Divine Transformation Realm. Before that, he could not complicate matters. After all, Jiang Tian was an old demon that had cultivated for 10,000 years and lived 2 lives. His mentality was extremely calm and rational. Compared to improving his cultivation and ascending to immortality and becoming a god, grudges were just a small matter. It was not good to lose the big picture for the small. However, now that the Devil's Claws were spewing out devil chi, the quasi-immortal tree was almost decaying, Jiang Tian was about to obtain the opportunity and end his journey in Saint Origin world. Yin Nanxian and the others had come to deliver their heads. How could he not kill Jiang Tian? Jiang Tian's emotions were in turmoil, but his face was extremely calm and gloomy. His sharp eyes flashed, and after retracting them, they became dull. His waist was bent, and there was no trace of murderous intent or aura fluctuation. Yen Nancian is already a half-saint of void return. This is much higher than his cultivation in his previous life. In fact, many people's cultivation progress is much higher than it was in their previous life. Their progress is accelerating. The reason is very simple. I implemented a new policy in the Eastern Empire, but I didn't expect that a single spark could start a prairie fire. Now many secular countries in Saint Origin world are affected by the new policy. Most of the secular empires, through peace or war, have implemented the county system and abolished the enfeoffment system. The potential of the people has been stimulated to the extreme. Talented people have been born in large numbers, and giants have been born. They have become an existence that can compete with the hidden sects. The power of the secular empires has also made the hidden sects feel challenged. Just like in the Eastern Empire, the sects have become vassals of the imperial power. It's just that the Imperial Academy is flexible. Therefore, the secluded sects are also rapidly improving their strength under the pressure. Specifically, every cultivator can obtain more cultivation resources, cultivation techniques, and so on from the sections. The speed of advancement is several times faster than before. The secular empires and the hidden sects are like the United States and Soviet Union fighting for hegemony on Earth. They have launched an arms race, and the potential of both sides has been stimulated. Jiang Tian thought in his heart, but on the surface he was like an ordinary person, listless, cowering, and dispirited, as if he was about to die. His gaze fell on Emperor Yachang, who was talking and laughing with Princess Mou. Looking at Princess Mou's frown, he could guess what Emperor Yachang was talking about. Probably he's pursuing Princess Mou and wants to marry her. Although Mou has a fiery temper, she's not a fool. She won't fall for it. Jiang Tian's eyes revealed traces of ridicule. Jiang Tian naturally knew that the reason why Lin Dai jumped out to oppose him at the Imperial Advisor's Mansion's housewarming banquet 10 years ago was because of Yachang's instigation. Wu Yachang was not a mediocre person. At that time, he saw the huge potential of Jiang Tian's reform. The county system would make the Eastern Empire look brand new, from poverty and weakness to a peerless power. Furthermore, the Black Moon Empire was adjacent to the Eastern Empire. As the saying went, how could one allow others to sleep beside one's bed? Of course, the Eastern Empire's strength was what Yachang was most unwilling to see. Therefore he sabotaged it. Haha, it wasn't convenient for you to settle those debts previously. But now, I can settle them all together. A trace of killing intent emerged in Jiang Tian's heart again. Back then, Jiang Tian wanted to kill Yang Dingtian and protect Huanglinger. He needed a world-shaking battle to cover up the clues. Yachang's instigation and Lin Dai's questioning and provocation were exactly what Jiang Tian wanted. But Jiang Tian wouldn't be so forgiving when Yachang harbored ill intentions back then. Naturally, he wanted to eliminate him. When the critical realm opens, the devil chi will be exposed, and the immortal chi will be suppressed. The great sects and powerful countries will rush into search for opportunities. The battlefield will change rapidly. It's too easy to take advantage of this opportunity to eliminate a half-saint. Even if you bring along your master, you still won't be able to stop it. Jiang Tian glanced at the Iron Hand Saint beside him, who was dressed in hemp clothes and had a simple and crude face, and a trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. The Iron Hand Saint was indeed a genuine void return saint, and wasn't weak at all. His cultivation and strength was much more terrifying than the sect patriarch of the Cold Moon Sword sect, Suzhia, who besieged Jiang Tian during the housewarming banquet. The reason why Jiang Tian was so fearless was because in his previous life, Jiang Tian had ventured deep into the critical realm canyon more than once. Furthermore, he had flipped through a large number of ancient books and records regarding this place. It could be said that this place was extremely mysterious and dangerous to ordinary people. But to him, it was transparent and had no secrets to speak of. Jiang Tian had the geographical advantage, and could make use of various opportunities to eliminate the Iron Hand Saint. Chapter 2029. The Luoying sect was led by Lian Huahan and Saint Qianma, not the sect master. However, the Luoying sect was still a holy land. Moreover, Lian Huahan was the saintess and Saint Qianma was also a giant. Therefore, when he arrived, he attracted a lot of attention. Immediately, someone came over to greet them. After all, the opening of the critical realm was extremely dangerous. At this time, they needed to work together to overcome the difficulties. Of course, they had to build a good relationship in advance. The guardian of the Eastern Empire greets the seniors of the Luoying sect. The first to arrive was Mou, who brought Lin Yang, Fang Goyu, Fang Jinlong and Lin Hanqing. Their posture was very humble as they bowed like disciples. It was not for Lian Huahan, but for Saint Qianma. She had followed the great ancestor Emperor Dongfang Run to conquer the world and establish the empire. Her seniority was very high and her status was incomparably respected. Honored guests, your arrival brings light to my humble dwelling. On the Luoying sect side, Lian Huahan and Saint Qianma would personally meet them. Under the greeting of Huang Linger and a few other disciples, the empire's representatives boarded the Luoying sect's flying ship and sat down in a spacious and bright hall. As a servant, Jiang Tian, after serving tea, he stood at the door with his back hunched and was on duty. In the seat, Lin Yang sipped his tea and subconsciously glanced at Jiang Tian. Suddenly, his pupils constricted and emitted a strange light. Husband, what's wrong? Beside him, Fang Goyu asked softly. 10 years of wind and rain, 10 years of hardships. Fang Goyu had personally witnessed Lin Yang's transformation from a playboy to a mature and steady general of the empire. Especially after experiencing several years of cruel war against the pantheon of demons, Lin Yang had killed countless enemies and had long developed a heart as hard as iron. He was usually cold and calm, and his expression would not change even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. It's nothing. Lin Yang shook his head gently and glanced at Jiang Tian again. Only then did he withdraw his gaze, and his eyes dimmed. The feeling he gives me is very similar to Mr. Jiang. He did not know why, but when he saw the old man serving tea, he actually had a sense of familiarity. However, he quickly expelled this strange thought from his mind. After all, back then, Imperial Preceptor Siqing was a terrifying existence who dared to make enemies of all the sects in the world. She was all-powerful and had killed people like flies. However, the old man in front of him had no cultivation at all. Of course, Lin Yang also knew that Jiang Tian often used mysterious methods to hide his true cultivation, and had a backup plan. However, this old man's temples were white, and he was shivering and dispirited. Even his gaze was dim, and without any sharpness. He was completely an ordinary person who had achieved nothing, ran into walls everywhere, lost hope in fame and status, and gave up on struggling. He only wished to live out his remaining days in peace and stability. One's cultivation could be concealed, and one's posture and actions could be faked. However, a person's charm could not be changed. Sigh, I wonder where Mr. Jiang went. It's probably because I miss him too much that I have this illusion. Lin Yang's mind was in a mess. Suddenly, the laws fluctuated slightly, and would attribute spiritual energy filled the air. A woman in palace attire and a woman in green walked in. Saint Qianma and Saintess Lian Huahan have arrived. Greetings, senior. Lin Yang and the others quickly got up and saluted. Everyone, please have a seat. Saint Qianma smiled kindly, and waved her hand slightly. Thank you, senior. Everyone sat down. Saint Qianma glanced at everyone, and a gratified look appeared in her eyes. She smiled and said, Little Mou, you've broken through to the half-saint realm. Congratulations. I once heard that you've been stuck at the 6th level of the soul formation realm for decades and couldn't advance an inch. In the past 10 years, you've improved by leaps and bounds. In 10 years, you've walked the path of the previous 100 years. If you can break through, the Eastern Empire will have another young and powerful saint to oversee it. Thank you for your encouragement, senior. Eldest Princess Mou bowed deeply, then sighed and said, Actually, I have to thank Imperial Preceptor Siqing. Oh. Saint Qianma's gentle face was filled with curiosity. Back then, Imperial Preceptor Siqing saw that I was concerned about the affairs of the country, and was eager for quick success and instant benefits. Therefore, she taught me a set of 12 divine sounds of Longhuan. Eldest Princess Mou's clear eyes revealed a look of longing as she said gently, "This song is like a heavenly immortal sound. Whether it's played or listening, it can calm me down, eliminate the evil, cleanse the cover, and see the true me." Therefore, one by one, the barriers were broken through without any attack. That's right, breaking through was as easy as blowing off dust. As soon as she finished speaking, the entire place was silent. The Soul Formation Realm cultivators of the Luo Ying sect were shocked. Even Lian Huahuan's beautiful eyes were wide open. Saint Qianma murmured in a low voice, "When the conditions are right, it's as easy as blowing off dust. This Imperial Preceptor Siqing is really a great talent." However, when she mentioned Imperial Preceptor Siqing, it was inevitable that people would think of Purple Marquis, who was killed by Jiang Tian. And Purple Marquis Shen Higu was the descendant of Saint Qianma. Senior, Purple Marquis was bewitched by the demon clan, and ended up like this. I deeply regret and regret. I hope you can. In his seat, Lin Hanqing stood up and bowed, full of apology and sincerity. In fact, Lin Hanqing was a kind and honest person. From the beginning to the end, he had no intention of harming others. He did not want Purple Marquis to end up like this. However, everyone had their own motives and were in different camps. The conflict had reached an irresolvable point. Director Lin, don't blame yourself. Saint Qianma waved her hand and smiled. I've long been indifferent to the life and death of my bloodline. Besides, my lifespan is so long. My descendants have already spread and I have dozens of bloodlines. It's fine to break the bloodline of Purple Marquis. At the end of the day, Purple Marquis betrayed the Empire and colluded with the demons. He only has himself to blame. Under the seat, Eldest Princess Mou, Lin Hanqing and the others were filled with admiration. Saint Qianma's breadth of mind was indeed extraordinary. At this moment, another announcement sounded from outside the door. Yan Nancian of the Heavenly Luo sect and his son, Yan Beifei, request an audience. Since there are new guests, we will take our leave for now. Mou and Lin Hanqing stood up tactfully. Don't be in a hurry. Saint Qianma smiled and urged them to stay. I'm very happy to see that there are so many talents in the Empire. Just accompany this old woman and chat for a while. I also want to know more about Starfire Academy's new policies and the situation of Starfire Academy. These are all treasures left behind by Imperial Tutor Siqing. Then I'll have to trouble you. Everyone had no choice but to sit down. Qianma Saint looked at Lian Huahan and said, Sect girl, you will be in charge of receiving the Tian Luo sect. Martial uncle, it's fine. Lian Huahan smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Yan Nancian, other than paying a formal visit, should have come to find a dual cultivation Dao companion for his son. Saint Qianma was slightly taken aback and said in surprise, I heard that Yan Beifei and Zhao Feifei are married. Indeed. However, Yan Beifei wants to find another concubine to aid his cultivation. Lian Huahan said, Our sect's female cultivators mainly cultivate wood-type cultivation techniques that nourish tens of thousands of nomological laws. They have always been the most sought after, so Saint Qianma frowned when she heard that. Then it has to be consensual. Previously, when Yang Dingtian wanted to marry Huang Linger, I heard that Huang Linger wasn't willing. Chapter 2030. Sai Senior, we're all experienced people. Don't you understand? Little girls are always restrained by their emotions and are not rational enough. Hearing that, Lian Huahan explained. However, when she grows up, she will understand that in this world, what can compare to increasing her cultivation level and climbing the long path of immortality? The Tao companions I found for her are all geniuses and elites. I'm doing this for her own good. Lian Huahan was a sect disciple and had a noble status. However, Saint Qianma and her great-grandfather were of the same generation. Therefore, Lian Huahan maintained respect for her. Saint Qianma shook her head and said, That depends on her own wishes. Our motto is that all living beings are equal, love with impartiality and non-aggression. Do you have to force your own disciple? Using power to oppress others is essentially using force to coerce them. Besides, everyone has different pursuits. She might think that being happy is more important than becoming an immortal and attaining the Tao. It might even be so for the rest of her life. If you force her like this, won't you make her suffer for the rest of her life? Jiang Tian, who was outside the door, heard that and praised in his heart. Regardless of whether he agreed with Saint Qianma's overly idealistic and naive theory. However, Jiang Tian admired this woman's knowledge and action. She never pretended. I've learned my lesson. Lian Huahan nodded with a smile. Saint Qianma did not know if she had really listened. However, it was not good for her to be long-winded and force him. She nodded and said, "Then go and greet the fellow Taoists of the Tianluo sect. I'll have a chat with my old friends from the Eastern Empire." Soon, Lian Huahan led Huanglinger and the other disciples to meet Yin Nanxian, and the others in another hall. Jiang Tian and the other servants served tea as usual, and stood outside the hall to wait for orders. I heard that Yin Beifei has taken a fancy to Huanglinger this time. I wonder what the sect disciple thinks. What else can I think? Of course I agree. Huanglinger was originally brought here by her from a desolate star realm. She came from a humble background. It's her honor to be Yin Beifei's concubine. That's true. Yin Nanxian is already an elder of the Tianluo sect. He has a chance of ascending to the position of sect master in the future. Huanglinger has the Yiwood spirit root and a 9th grade physique. It's neither too good nor too bad, and is most suitable for dual cultivation. Outside the door, a few outer court disciples who were in charge of managing the odd jobs were gathered together, and whispering to each other. Not only did Yin Beifei get married early, he even took a fancy to Huanglinger. Fate is truly unpredictable. Jiang Tian's heart skipped a beat. Just a flap of a butterfly's wings could cause a hurricane on the other side of the ocean. His and Huanglinger's involvement in this world was only a small variable, but due to various chain reactions and magnification effects, it had greatly changed the fate of many people, and even the course of the continent's history. But why has she never mentioned it to me? Jiang Tian was puzzled. But after thinking about it for a moment, he quickly figured it out. Huanglinger had a meticulous and quiet personality. She knew that he was deliberately hiding his identity, so she was worried that if she told him, he would casually make a move and expose his strength. At this moment in the main hall, Lian Huahan and Yin Nanxian had already started talking. Yin Nanxian first flattered Luoying's sect and Lian Huahan. Finally, they talked about the purpose of their visit. They wanted to find a dual cultivation concubine for Yin Beifei, and had to give a generous betrothal gift. As a sect disciple, Lian Huahan considered the long-term development of the sect. The more friends she had, the better. She had long been accustomed to this kind of marriage alliance, so she did it very smoothly. After calculating in her heart, she felt that it was extremely worth it. Thus she smiled and nodded. Yin Beifei, may I know which disciple of my sect you have taken a fancy to? Behind her stood more than 10 female disciples. All of their cultivations were above the nascent soul realm, and there were even some at the soul transformation realm. Among the crowd, she was different from the other female cultivators with a smile on her face. Huanglinger lowered her head slightly, her hair falling down to hide her appearance. She understood that on the surface, everyone was following their master to meet the guests. However, they were actually chosen by Yin Beifei. It was like choosing livestock. One had to look at the size of their teeth. However, her expression was even more beautiful in Yin Beifei's eyes, causing his heart to skip a beat. You must be fellow Taoist Huanglinger, right? I've heard a lot about you. I've also seen you in the 10 Beauties painting and the 100 Flowers painting. Yin Beifei smiled. I didn't expect that an elite disciple of Tianluo sect like you would also be interested in such boring works. Huanglinger raised her head and smiled with a hint of mockery. On the way here, Jiang Tian had already explained to Huanglinger how to conceal himself from the heavenly secrets. This time, after obtaining the treasures in the Great Liminal Canyon, he would bring Huanglinger out of Saint Origin World, and travel to another continent far away in the Sea of Stars to find a new opportunity to become an immortal. Furthermore, there were various laws of the Devil World in the Great Liminal Canyon that concealed the probing of divine senses. It was mysterious and deep. Jiang Tian could kill people as he wished without being detected by the supreme experts. Therefore, It was not hard to imagine that anyone who coveted Huang Linger would be killed by Jiang Tian. Even if the other party was not killed by Jiang Tian, there was nothing they could do if she escaped far away. At that moment, she was no longer afraid, but she was more or less annoyed. After all, she was kind and gentle. She truly did not want to see Yan Beifei provoke her and be killed by Jiang Tian. Of course, this was also because she did not know about the feud between Jiang Tian and Yan Beifei and the others. Otherwise, she would not have cared. Yan Beifei was also slightly stunned when he sensed the mockery in Huang Linger's tone. However, he was not angry. Instead, he found this woman interesting and his desire to conquer her was provoked. He smiled in a seemingly carefree manner, showing off his knowledge of the cultivation world. Haha, it's a balance between work and rest. It's easy to fall into a state of mental exhaustion if you blindly cultivate. Only by alternating between tension and relaxation can you be close to the mortal world and comprehend everything in the world. Only then can you have a source of fresh water and not let your soul dry up. Huang Linger was expressionless and did not reply at all. However, Lian Huahan looked at Yan Beifei with admiration. Yan Beifei, have you taken a liking to Linger? I've embarrassed myself in front of you, senior. Indeed, I fell in love with Huang Linger at first sight. I hope that you can grant me my wish, senior. Yan Beifei cupped his fists. Lian Huahan replied without hesitation. No problem. She did not seek Huang Linger's opinion at all. That was because in her opinion, everything that Huang Linger had right now was given to her by her. Naturally, she could control her own fate. Furthermore, her marriage to Yan Beifei was not only beneficial to the sect, she would not mistreat Huang Linger either. Yan Nancian nodded slowly, looking satisfied with Huang Linger as well. This woman had an extraordinary foundation, and should be able to nourish his son, if they were to dual cultivate. If normal dual cultivation did not work, he would use his fiend skills to suck her dry. At the very least, he would be able to push his son up a few levels. Thank you for granting my wish, senior. Yan Beifei was overjoyed and smiled. Little sister Ling, the liminal canyon is very dangerous. However, I will protect you along the way. His gaze was also unbridledly caressing Huang Linger's curvaceous body. His posture was very frivolous and his gaze was very greedy. He looked as if he could not wait to devour Huang Linger. Huang Linger's pretty face darkened and she bowed. Master, I'm not willing to marry. I only want to accompany you for life. The moment she said that, the entire place fell into dead silence. No one dared to believe it. They did not expect that the usually obedient and gentle Huang Linger would dare to disobey Lian Huahan. Chapter 2031. Yan Beifei's face darkened. He was clearly displeased. He thought of himself as a genius and was very handsome. Countless female cultivators were infatuated with him. Therefore, he was very narcissistic. He did not expect to be rejected. Haha, what's going on? Yan Nancian was calm and composed, but he forced a smile. He was slightly displeased. He had also greeted Lian Huahan before. She had said that there was no problem. But now, this disciple had flatly rejected him. Lian Huahan, how do you discipline your disciples? Lian Huahuan's face darkened. Her gaze turned cold. She said in a low voice, Linger, it's your fortune that master has betrothed you to Yan Beifei. It's also for your future. She picked up the lid of the teacup and gently stirred the tea leaves in the cup. She concealed the fierce killing intent in her beautiful eyes. What else do you want? Do you think that a wild girl from a remote star region like you can't be interested in Yan Beifei? It's important to know one's own limits. Master's teachings are right, Huang Linger said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Ling was born in a remote star with a backward orthodoxy. It's inevitable that my knowledge is shallow. Moreover, my constitution, talent, and comprehension are all very poor. I've always felt inferior. I think that I'm completely unworthy of brother Yan Beifei. Outside the door, Jiang Tian's eyes widened. He almost laughed out loud. This was the standard good guy card method of women rejecting men on earth. He did not expect her to use it so smoothly. Yan Beifei suddenly felt speechless. Yan Nancian also frowned. Lian Huahan also did not know how to vent her anger. she said in a low voice. Don't belittle yourself. Master's teachings are right. Huang Linger bowed again and said seriously, my constitution is not good. I know that my constitution is not good and my talent is limited. Therefore, I wish to invest my limited energy into unlimited cultivation. Moreover, the continent is filled with demons and evil. Demonic chi has invaded, and the people have no way of making a living. As a disciple of the divine sect, I bear the responsibility of protecting the world. I worry every day and have no heart for love. This time, Jiang Tian's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He suddenly remembered that when he was in university in his previous life, there was a classmate who was rejected by a girl after she confessed to him. The reason was, the motherland has yet to be unified, so how can I be in the mood to talk about love? Now it seemed that Huang Linger was also proficient in this field. Lian Huahan was so angry that her hands were trembling. She stared at Huang Linger in disbelief. She didn't know if this girl was really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. She wanted to slap Huang Linger to death, but she couldn't really do that. After all, what the Luoying sect preached was that all living beings were equal, and they loved all living beings with impartiality. They could not bully or attack each other. Since that's the case, there's no need to force it. Yin Nanxian forced a smile. After all, he was looking for a Dao companion for his son. They needed to be compatible with each other. He couldn't force it. Otherwise, it would be like a melon that was forcefully harvested would not be sweet. Dual cultivation would not work, and it would even harm Yan Beifei. Yan Beifei was still angry and said in a low voice, he said in a deep voice, Haha, fellow Huang Linger, you just look down on me. Why do you have to be so polite? Just say it. Huang Linger did not say a word. Her expression was calm, and Yan Beifei was helpless. Fellow Taoists, I'm sorry. It's my fault for not disciplining her properly. That's why this girl is so impudent. Lian Huahan cupped her hands slightly and apologized to the two of them. She had made up her mind to teach Huang Linger a lesson after this. Fellow Taoist, you're too polite. This is a small matter. There's no need to worry about it. Yin Nanxian smiled and revealed a stern expression. The key is that our sects can work together in the exploration of the Great Canyon at the critical boundary. That's true. The Great Canyon at the critical boundary is incomparably dangerous. Demonic chi flows, demonic creatures wreak havoc, and the laws of the demonic world cover the sky. Not to mention us, even ancient sages can die in there. Lian Huahan deeply agreed. Immediately after, she discussed the operation strategy in the Great Canyon with Yin Nanxian. The discussion lasted for a full 15 minutes before Yin Nanxian stood up and bade farewell. Lian Huahan led everyone to send him off. Before he left, all the servants bowed with their heads lowered as a sign of respect. Jiang Tian followed suit. However, Yan Beifei was extremely displeased. He raised his hand and slapped towards Jiang Tian, hollering, Dog of a slave! How dare you be disrespectful to me? He wanted to kill Jiang Tian with a single slap to vent his anger. At the same time, he wanted to scare Huang Linger as an example to others. Jiang Tian's exposed cultivation was faintly discernible. In Yan Beifei's eyes, a mere servant was akin to an ant. So what if he killed him? Ah! At that moment, Huang Linger was shocked. She did not know if she would expose Jiang Tian's identity if she interfered. Lian Huahan, on the other hand, watched coldly from the sidelines. She was completely unmoved and did not care about Jiang Tian's life or death. Some of the other disciples were furious, but did not dare to say anything. Some of them just watched from the sidelines. As for Yin Nanxian, he merely pretended to scold. Child, is there a need to make things difficult for an ant? It was as though Jiang Tian's soul was about to return to the 9 heavens and dye the ground red with his blood the next moment. However, with a bang, an invisible barrier of laws suddenly appeared beneath Yan Beifei's palm. Yan Beifei's ferocious and domineering attack of laws was like a basin of water splashed on glass, dissipating in all directions. Yan Beifei merely felt a boundless and irresistible recoil. Opening his mouth, he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. Yan Beifei, you're a little hot-tempered. A beautiful figure appeared in the hall not far away. Her robes fluttered in the wind, and she had an otherworldly bearing. Greetings, fellow Taoist Qianma. Yan Nanxian's expression froze as he revealed a look of deep wariness. He hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Saint Qianma. Yan Beifei and the others bowed as well. I know my mistake. In particular, Yan Beifei was so frightened that his legs trembled. Saint Qianma was not far from becoming an ancient sage. She was an unparalleled giant, and was at the level of a sect leader. Even Yan Nanxian was far from her, let alone them. Although she did not like killing, she liked to uphold justice and help the weak. If she were to argue with him, all she had to do was say a few words to the sect leader of the Tianluo sect, and he would not be able to bear it. Yan Beifei, it's best to know your mistake and correct it. It's not enough to know your mistake. The key is to correct it. You have to practice it. Saint Qianma looked deeply at Yan Beifei and said meaningfully. He was so frightened that he was drenched in sweat. His face was as pale as paper as he apologized profusely. Old man, thank you, Saint Qianma, for saving me. Jiang Tian seemed to have just reacted. He hurriedly bowed to Saint Qianma, befitting the image of an old and frail mortal. Sir, there's no need to be so polite. Saint Qianma returned the bow before turning around and sending the guests from the Eastern Empire away. I will remember this kindness. Jiang Tian straightened his body and looked at Saint Qianma's back. He secretly made up his mind. In the next few days, the experts from the Ancient Medicine Hall, Nine Mysteries Sect, Thunder Yang Sect and other sacred grounds arrived at the evil-infested ridge. Soon after, the leaders of the various sects and countries gathered together to discuss a plan of action. Your cultivation is not high. You might even have no cultivation. But no matter, we will do our best to ensure your safety. On this day, Saint Qianma gathered Jiang Tian and the other servants and said softly, once you cooperate with us to complete the mission, you will directly become an elite disciple of my sect. The laws of the evil world would consume the laws of the cultivators and backfire on them. However, it did not have much effect on mortals. Sometimes, mortals would play a role that cultivators could not replace. This was also the reason why they brought a group of mortal servants. Chapter 2032. Fairy, I heard that the critical canyon leads to hell, and is filled with demons and evil spirits. I'm afraid of death, so I don't want to go. Fairy, please forgive me for being useless. I really want to help, but I don't dare to. The servants were all afraid and wanted to leave. They tactfully but firmly refused. They knew the benefits of cultivation. Becoming an elite disciple of the Luoying sect was like a fish jumping through the dragon gate. But their lives were more important. Seeing this, Saint Qianma was disappointed, but she didn't want to force them. She forced a smile and said, all right, then you can take the bounty and leave quickly. The critical canyon is about to open. This place will be even more dangerous. Thank you, Fairy. Everyone left. Only Jiang Tian stepped forward and said, Fairy, this old man is willing to go with you. Great. Saint Qianma was happy. At the very least, there was a mortal left behind. Rumble. At this moment, there was a sudden change. In the critical canyon, waves of demonic chi surged up into the sky like black ink. Roar. Countless demonic phantoms appeared and roared angrily, as if they were going to rush out of the ground and devour the entire Saint Origin world. At this moment, whether it was cultivators or mortals, the entire Saint Origin world felt an evil, cruel, and depraved attraction. Whether it was the demon race or the human race, all kinds of evil and resentment were born in their hearts. They hated the heavens, hated the earth, hated the people, hated the karma, hated the cruel fate, and hated that they didn't kill enough. This was the power of the demonic chi's corruption and assimilation. Once assimilated, whether it was the demon race or the human race, they would all become demonic and become demonic. Of course, this was only the aftermath of the demonic chi. It wasn't the real corruption. The devilish hatred in the hearts of the common people of Saint Origin world only lasted for an instant. This is the demonic realm fragment nearing Saint Origin world. Jiang Tian's heart trembled as he stared at the abyss of the canyon. In essence, it was equivalent to two worlds that had merged and merged through the demonic realm fragment. The treasures of the demonic realm and the resources of immortal ascension had all appeared. This demonic realm fragment used to be the ancient battlefield between humans and demons. Ja. At this moment, it was as if a great array had been activated. The components of the array began to rotate and mesh. Beams of light shot into the sky. Then endless laws and fragments of the great Tao fell from the 9 heavens. They formed a rune array at the entrance of the canyon and suppressed the demonic chi. The two sides collided with each other and finally formed a relatively stable situation. The runes formed by the runes of the demonic realm and the laws of this world worked together to form a door, forming a passage to enter. It's open. The critical canyon is open. At that moment someone shouted. Everyone regained their senses from the shock, and they all became restless. Even an expert like Saint Qianma could not remain calm. Even though the probability wasn't high, what if he encountered a Tao integration stage resource? Then, she would be able to take another step forward. If even she was tempted, what more others? Everyone's emotions were very complicated. Nervousness, greed, fear, excitement, anticipation. More or less all of them. Let's go. An elder from the Hall of Ancient Medicine let out a loud roar as he led his disciples into the door and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Master, let's go as well. The Black Moon Empire's Yachang Emperor asked for permission from the Iron Hand Saint. After the latter slightly nodded, he waved his hand and thousands of armored horses broke through the sky and rushed into the door. Rumble. At this moment, the evil-infested ridge was very lively. Each sect and each country prepared their horses and armed themselves with weapons. They activated all kinds of magic treasures for concealment and defense, and rushed towards the door in an orderly manner. Tao friend Huanglinger, once you enter the canyon and encounter danger, you can ask your brother for help. Rumble. At this moment, the Tian Luo sect also moved. When they passed by the Luoing sect, Yin Beifei looked at Huanglinger and openly teased her. This is the Huanglinger from the 10 Beauties painting that you were talking about? She's only a so. Her appearance is only good-looking. Beside her, Zhao Feifei also looked at Huanglinger with interest. She was not jealous, but rather looked down on her. After all, Yin Beifei married her and made her his servant. What was there to be jealous about? No need. Our Luoing sect's strength is not inferior to yours. Huanglinger's pretty face became cold and she frowned. She felt as if she had eaten a fly and was disgusted to the core. You don't need to be polite. Your brother is not a narrow-minded person. Even if we can't make a deal, I will still be benevolent. Yin Beifei didn't have any self-awareness. He was a self-proclaimed romantic. He thought about it. No matter cultivation or background, he was a good match. Huanglinger had no reason to reject him. She must be playing that game of loosening the reins only to grasp them better. Yes, with this thought, Yin Beifei felt that Huanglinger's rejection was even more interesting and aroused his desire to conquer. You're too ugly, Huanglinger straightforwardly said. This one sentence caused Yin Beifei's neck to turn red, and he almost vomited blood. However, he couldn't continue to argue because they had reached the door and quickly entered the passage. Go. It's our turn. With Saint Qianma's order, everyone from the Luoing sect looked nervous and expectant. Next, the flying boat shone brightly and the propulsion furnace burned. The various runes carved on the boat also shone. It flew into the air and entered the passage through the door. Everyone's eyes widened. Through the protective barrier, they could see the scenery deep in the canyon. This was a completely different world. When they scanned with their divine sense, they didn't know how many millions of miles it was. It was much bigger than it looked. In essence, it belonged to the space fragment of the demonic world. It didn't belong to this world. In this world fragment, the mountains and rivers changed color. The plants and trees were demonized. It was filled with demonic chi. It was filled with violence, tragedy, destruction, killing, hatred and other negative emotions. In front of them, the mountains were pitch black without any green. It was as if they were made of copper and iron. Even the dust was like iron shavings. As far as the eye could see, there was no life at all. In all directions, there were black mountains like iron dragon corpses. One by one, they intertwined on the ground. Demonized plants began to appear. Ancient vines were like strange snakes. Giant trees were like umbrellas. The branches and leaves were like demonic claws, blocking everyone's sight. As they went deeper, there were demonic roars and strange cries. Some were like poisonous snakes spitting out their tongues. Some were like rattlesnakes crawling past. Some were like thunder, shaking the earth and mountains, making people's scalps go numb. In addition, there were demonic mists that pervaded the air. Multicolored specks of light flickered about, extremely beautiful, but also full of danger. Some of the lights were even the size of a lamp. It was as if demonic beasts were watching coldly. It made people's hair stand on end. Stepping into this world, everyone tried their best to restrain their spiritual power. They tried their best to become mortals. This was because the laws of the demonic world seemed to have spirituality. They took the initiative to invade the laws of the human world. The stronger your spiritual power, the stronger the pressure from the laws of the demonic world. Stepping into this world, everyone felt that the demonic chi was dense and heavy. It was 10 times or 100 times denser than the outside world. However, at the same time, the laws of the continent were also 10 times or 100 times stricter here. They were used to resist the former. Therefore, this also reflected the characteristics of exploring this place. Risk and opportunity coexisted. Many cultivators who stepped into this place for the first time were moved by it. Its dangers, strangeness, and the opportunities it contained were all shocking. Critical Grand Canyon. Stepping into this world. Even Jiang Tian sighed softly in his heart. Chapter 2033. There were too many theories about the origin of this world, and Jiang Tian did not want to delve too deeply into it. However, it was inevitable that he would feel a little emotional when he revisited this place. In his previous life, he had explored this place many times. His friends had fallen, he had also gained a lot, he had been betrayed, and he had also been helped by cultivators he had met by chance. Don't be too rash. Remember to support each other and don't stray too far away from the other sex teams. If you are alone and encounter a large demonic beast, even a sage will not be able to save you. In the team, there were often elders of the large sects and imperial advisors who reminded them like this. They were very cautious. Many sects and countries knew their limits. Although there were coveted treasures and elixirs in the Great Critical Canyon, it was still extremely dangerous. There were a large number of demonic beasts and even demons. Moreover, the deeper they went, the stronger the cultivation of the demon soldiers. Some demon commanders were even stronger than sages. In fact, Jiang Tian knew that when the two worlds overlapped, not only did the human race use this area as an exploration ground, but the demon race also used this area as a hunting ground. In the long river of history, many cultivators who entered this place had fallen. Among them, there were many soul formation stage powerhouses, and even a few sages. Therefore, they had learned their lesson and no longer took risks. Instead, they worked together as a team and even discussed the route they would take. Jiang Tian had also studied their route, and there was not much of a problem. Therefore, he decided to hitch a ride and follow the Luoying sex team. Rumble. In the mountains, an earth-shattering demonic chi soared into the sky. A demonic beast appeared. It had 3 heads and 6 arms. Its fangs were dense and its body was covered in scales. It was extremely heavy, as if it was cast from black iron. It rushed towards the Luoying sect's flying boat with a gust of evil wind. The tragic killing aura filled the void as if it could freeze one's soul. Elder. Countless people took out their Dharma treasures and instantly fell into a bitter battle. They looked at Saint Qianma and exclaimed. When everyone faced a demonic beast, they felt a huge sense of discomfort. Many of their attacks were like clay oxen entering the sea and had no lethality at all. Once they were contaminated by the demonic chi, the Dharma treasures that they were proud of seemed to be imprisoned. They could not unleash a tenth of their power. Kill. Saint Qianma took a step forward and opened her right hand. She slapped down without any ripples of mana. She won with pure physical strength. The vast power smashed down like a mountain, and the space below seemed to shrink like a piece of paper. The demonic beast was instantly torn apart, and blood gushed out like waves. Broken bones and flesh fell down like rocks. Saint Qianma is so strong. Everyone was sighing, and their spirits were lifted. Saint Tianma was like a Buddha made of precious gold. She was indestructible and invincible. Her power seemed to be limitless. Not bad. Even Jiang Tian nodded slightly. Saint Tianma didn't use her magic power, and used her physical strength to kill the devils. This way, she wouldn't attract more devils. Many sects were doing the same. They tried their best to restrain their magic power fluctuations as they moved stealthily. As the group ventured deeper, casualties began to appear. Rumble. A demon general appeared. He was equivalent to a soul formation cultivator. He rode a nether demon horse, and charged into a medium-sized sect with a halberd in his hand. The demon general had a strong physical body, and was extremely powerful in close combat. His Dharma laws could corrupt and erode human Dharma laws, which was something that the cultivators on the continent couldn't compare to. He slashed out with his halberd and destroyed all the lives within 10 miles. The cultivators of that sect died like rain. Even though a few saints and soul formation overlords arrived right after, he immediately ran 1,000 miles away and retreated calmly. Even a soul formation grand cultivator died under his halberd. Everyone was terrified. At first, there was only one, but more and more demon generals appeared. They tore through the line of defense and attacked the exploration team. Every soul formation realm demon general would lead more than a dozen nascent soul realm demons. Some small and medium-sized sects began to suffer large-scale casualties. That's terrifying. The fiends are so cruel. They didn't leave a single one alive. I don't know if it's a wise choice to join this expedition in the canyon. People watched their friends die one after another, and some even had their sects destroyed. One could imagine the psychological impact it brought. But in a short period of time, there was also a lot of good news. Many sects and countries had gained a lot and felt the joy of the harvest. The sect master of the Flying Phoenix sect picked 1,000-year-old breeze pill fruit. There were cheers. This kind of pill fruit could be refined into a divine medicine that could extend one's life and break through the shackles of cultivation, extending one's lifespan by 3,000 years. The treasure-gathering sect joined forces with the other sects and countries, and hunted down a soul formation demon beast for 3,000 miles. They shared its blood and demon seed. Of course, there were also sects and countries that killed demon beasts and obtained resources. The fiends couldn't eat it directly, but after purifying it with special methods, it had unexpected benefits for their cultivation. The Qishan sect dug 100,000 feet into a demon ridge, and found a piece of emperor when iron that weighed 10,000 kilograms. There were also sects that obtained a piece of great Dao treasure metal that could be used to refine Dao weapons. It was very rare and priceless. That wasn't much. In fact, this space fragment used to be the human-demon battlefield. Countless grand cultivators of the fiend race and the demon race had died here countless years ago. Of course, there were also many Dharma treasure fragments and remains. These things were even more precious. Fragments of saint weapons, defensive treasures, Taoist armor and battle boots, spiritual pills and precious medicines, beast bones and Dao marrow. Everyone had different gains, more or less. These gains made everyone's fear of retreating dissipate by more than half. Everyone's spirits were lifted, and their minds were firm. At this moment, the critical canyon had become a feast. Not only for the human cultivators of the Saint Origin world, but also for the fiend race. The fiend race had also begun to wipe out the human race and counterattack each other. The smell of blood filled the air and filled the air. Shouts and roars rose and fell one after another. From time to time, there would be good news of finding treasures, but there would also be bad news that stimulated people's nerves. However, sacred grounds, divine sects, and other powerful countries were often invincible due to their strength. Their gains were enough to make many forces jealous. For example, the Ancient Medicine Palace, Luoying Sect, Nine Mysteries Sect, Heavenly Luo Sect, Thunderyang Sect and Black Moon Empire. The Yachang Emperor killed a half-saint multi-eyed golden-scaled demon beast. On the early morning of the 5th day, an exciting piece of news arrived, which made the entire human exploration team burst into cheers. The eyes of this demon beast could be refined into a saint weapon. It could interfere with the opponent's mind, and was very lethal. A half-saint multi-eyed golden-scaled demon beast. Even an ancient saint would have a hard time dealing with it. The Yachang Emperor killed it alone. Countless cultivators gasped when they heard this, and they were extremely shocked and moved. The cavalry led by the Yachang Emperor completed the Emperor Ming's Demon Buster formation. They trapped the demon beast for 3 days and 3 nights and finally killed it. A cultivator who witnessed it told the truth. A half-saint demonic beast. Even a saint would have a slim chance of winning against it. They would have to be cautious and even avoid it. After all, the Yachang Emperor was a new emperor who had just reached the half-saint realm. It was really admirable that he could achieve such a result. Emperor Ming's Demon Buster formation. Everyone was moved when they heard the news. Especially Mou, Lin Yang and the others from the Eastern Empire. They had mixed feelings. This formation was known as the formation that protected the Black Moon Empire. It was created by the founder of the empire. In the long history of the empire, it had shown extraordinary splendor and killed 3 saints. It also made the Eastern Empire suffer a lot. However, 1,000 years ago, this formation was lost because of the civil war. It had been lost for many years and could not be rearranged. Unexpectedly, the Yachang Emperor and the Iron Hand Saint had restored it. Chapter 2034. Yan Beifei entered an ancient cave by chance and found a piece of green cloud jade mountain copper. It's a great Dao treasure metal, and can be used to forge a sacred weapon. More cries of surprise rang out, filled with envy. He's so lucky. I'm afraid that Yan Beifei will be rewarded by the sect leader when he returns. Yeah, after all, a sacred weapon material is too rare. There's no market for it. Even a mountain of high-grade crystals can't be exchanged for it. You can't be envious. He dared to enter the dangerous area. There are many demonic beasts in that ancient cave. Hearing such good news, everyone was so jealous that their eyes were bloodshot. There were even people who were brave enough to enter the dangerous area. However, they didn't have the strength and died. Great Dao treasure metal contained natural Great Dao patterns and was extremely powerful. Once a sacred weapon was used, its power would increase by several times and activate the corresponding Great Dao. It was said that this piece of Great Dao treasure metal contained the Great Dao patterns of Cloud and Mountain. It was extremely rare to be able to activate these 2 Great Daos. Elder, sect leader, I heard that an elder from the ancient medicine hall found 100,000-year-old silver-rich grass. However, it was eaten by a toad. In the Luoying sect's flying ship, a disciple received the news and reported it to Lian Huahan and Saint Qianmo. 100,000-year-old silver-rich grass. Lian Huahan and Saint Qianmo were moved and looked at each other. In the Saint Origin world, the Luoying sect, which specialized in wood-type cultivation techniques, was the most profound in the study of spiritual herbs and plants other than the ancient medicine hall. This grass was a priceless treasure. With other precious herbs, it could be used to refine a sacred pill that could help avoid return sage break through 2 or 3 levels. What kind of toad is it? Saint Qianmo asked. It's completely red and extremely fast. It can spit out demonic flames. I heard that many powerful experts were present, but they couldn't catch it. The disciple hurriedly replied. Fire speed vermilion toad. Jiang Tian's eyes narrowed. He recalled many details about this toad. This toad wasn't conspicuous, but it was a true treasure. It could only live in places with abundant immortal qi, and eat supreme-grade spiritual herbs as its food. The toad meat on its body contained endless spirit qi, and could help it break through several levels. Even a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator could use this to break through, let alone ordinary cultivators. Normal return to void stage saints might not even be able to withstand the effects of the toad crackers, and their bodies would explode. It could be said that the so-called priceless silver-rich grass was like a weed in comparison. Although Saint Qianmo and Lian Huahan did not know the origins of this toad, they knew that the silver-rich grass was priceless. That fiery red toad probably hasn't digested the silver-rich grass yet. If we catch the toad and peel open its stomach, we might be able to find the grass. Follow the original team and search for the fiery red toad. Zhong Nu and I will drive the flying boat, Saint Qianmo said in a deep voice. This expedition was not only to search for treasures, but also to train the disciples. The path of cultivation had always been bumpy. How could a flower in a greenhouse withstand the wind and rain, and grow into a towering tree? Yes. Many disciples agreed. Remember, you can't be more than 5,000 kilometers away from the flying boat. If there is any danger, call for help immediately. Saint Qianma gave a few instructions before letting everyone leave. This time, I'm bringing Mr. Jiang along. Huang Linger glanced at her two teammates and said softly, "Ah, senior sister Ling. Or why are you bringing him along? Isn't he a burden?" Her two teammates were instantly reluctant. In an expedition, the advantage of mortals was that they did not have any nomological fluctuations, and would not be counterattacked by the demonic nomological laws. They would not alarm demon beasts and could carry out some sneak attack missions. However, they were already deep in the hinterland and demon beasts and demon generals were everywhere. They could devour mortals in a single bite. What was the point of bringing Jiang Tian along? Mr. Jiang has explored this place many times, and is experienced. Huang Linger persuaded. Then she said, "Of course I won't force you guys. If you guys don't agree, you can follow other teams." "Alright, I'll join other teams." A team member named Huang Liang chose to leave immediately. It was not difficult to join other teams. With more members, the strength of the team would naturally increase as well. Their team leader had no reason to refuse. "I'll follow junior sister Ling." The other cultivator, Sima Tu, chuckled. Of course, he looked down on Jiang Tian. However, he felt that Huang Liang's choice was simply brainless. This old man is indeed a burden. However, if he is really trapped by demons and demonic creatures and is in danger, you can just sit and watch him die. He can't be a burden to you, right? He can even be a meat shield. Sima Tu glanced at Jiang Tian with contempt. Soon many cultivators entered small flying boats. The small flying boats left the main body and flew in all directions to search for the flaming scarlet toad, according to the previous information. Chase towards the east. Jiang Tian glanced at the map and suddenly said in a deep voice, "All right." Huang Linger immediately steered the flying boat and flew towards the east. Junior sister Ling. Something's not right. According to its trajectory, it should be heading towards the west. Sima Tu's hair was white and he was old and steady. Seeing this, he was also puzzled. He was an elite disciple of Saint Qianma. He was not a personal disciple and only received guidance once or twice a year. Although he was an elite, he was not that elite. He had been a disciple of Saint Qianma for many years, and his cultivation was still at the nascent soul realm. However, after experiencing so many storms, he still had some experience and knowledge. Its nest is in the east. Jiang Tian smiled without batting an eyelid. The flaming scarlet toad's intelligence was not high. Right now, the entire expedition team was searching for it. Driven by its instincts, it would definitely run towards the safest place, its nest. Fufu. Sima Tu laughed in disdain. However, he did not insist and had an indifferent attitude. He was an old fox. He did not participate in this operation to train himself or to gain some benefits. Under the premise of ensuring his safety, wouldn't it be great to slack off and accumulate some merit points for the sect? Under Jiang Tian's command, the small flying boat streaked across the sky like a meteor. Based on the subtle traces left behind by the flaming scarlet toad, he knew that they were getting closer. Jiang Tian did not want to use this flaming scarlet toad as a resource to break through to the soul formation realm. However, he could refine it into a divine elixir after he reached the soul formation realm, and it would not be a problem for him to break through one or two small levels. Jiang Tian wanted to catch this toad wholeheartedly. However, at this juncture, trouble came knocking on his door, a few hundred kilometers away from its nest. Suddenly, a group of cultivators arrived on their swords. Instantly, they split up and surrounded the flying boat. There were dozens of cultivators, and it could be said that they surrounded the flying boat so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. It's the Heaven Net Sword formation of Heaven Luo sect. When they saw the group of cultivators attacking, many nearby cultivators revealed nervous expressions. It's Yin Beifei of Heaven Luo sect. Immediately after, when everyone saw Yin Beifei in the lead flying towards the flying boat on his sword, their expressions changed, and they discussed fervently. Everyone, I have some private matters to discuss with Fairy Huanglinger. Please make it easy for me. Yan Beifei had a smile on his face as he cupped his fists in a circle. He looked very handsome. To put it simply, I want you guys to scram. Also, if anyone dares to spread a single word about what happened today, I'll kill them without mercy. Behind Yan Beifei, a level 1 soul formation young man swept his gaze across the surrounding cultivators arrogantly and sneered. The moment he said that, a ferocious aura surged out and spread in all directions, causing everyone's hearts to palpitate. The murderous aura sent chills down their spines. Chapter 2035. This is Yan Beifei's junior brother Yangxi. He's very arrogant and ruthless. Once, because the cloud-stepping sect master looked at him, he single-handedly killed more than 300 people from the cloud-stepping sect. Blood flowed like a river. Not a single chicken or dog was spared. He's a living king of hell. We can't afford to offend him. Retreat, retreat. I heard that Huanglinger rejected Yan Beifei's marriage proposal. Now that she's been stopped, I'm afraid she's in trouble. Immediately, all the surrounding cultivators were frightened to the point that their hearts went cold. They fled in all directions like stray dogs, not daring to get into trouble. After all, Yangxi and Yan Beifei were both young geniuses who had reached the soul formation stage. Moreover, they had powerful backers and were disciples of the Tianluo sect's deputy sect master, Yan Nanxian. They were not people they could afford to offend. In the blink of an eye, all the cultivators had left. Yan Beifei slowly flew to the front of the flying boat and smiled. Little sister Ling Er, it's a small world. I didn't think we'd meet again here. Huanglinger looked coldly at Yan Beifei and said indifferently, "Get out of the way. I'm not in the mood to chat with you." Haha, little sister, you're fierce enough. Yan Beifei's face darkened, then he laughed. But little sister, you might not know this, but I, Yan Beifei, like riding a fierce horse. Today, I'll grab your braid and whip the horse. Beside him, Sima too was so scared that his face turned pale and he trembled. Fairy Ling Er, if you really can't do it, just give in. He's a soul formation genius and a holy god. His strength is equivalent to a normal half-sage. You won't lose out. Transmission Dharma artifacts and spiritual sense transmissions had all been cut off by their formation treasures. Yan Beifei was clearly trying to use force. However, Yan Beifei was also afraid of Lian Huahan and the Luoying sect behind Huanglinger. After all, one had to look at the master before beating a dog. Moreover, Huanglinger was Lian Huahuan's direct disciple. Therefore, Yan Beifei would not let the news spread. After getting intimate with her, he would definitely kill everyone, including himself. Huanglinger ignored him. Instead, she looked at Yan Beifei mockingly. Not only are you ugly, but your heart is ugly as well. You are so ugly. Aha! Yan Beifei was so angry that he laughed. He gritted his teeth and said, "What a sharp-tongued girl. Since you're so good at talking, I'll let you use your mouth to serve me later." Skylark smiled mischievously and said, "That's right. Senior brother, you can take your time chatting with your little lover. I'll take the brothers outside to keep watch for you." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and the dozens of disciples scattered. "Woman, come into my arms." Yan Beifei chuckled and extended his right hand towards Huanglinger. Rumble. A translucent, jade-like hand condensed in the air. It was over 10 meters wide, and it did not seem to be made of flesh and blood. Instead, it seemed to be completely composed of the laws and the Grand Tao. It was extremely dense and vast, and it seemed to blot out the sun. It completely enveloped Jiang Tian, Huanglinger, and Sima Tuesday Heaven's Net Palm. Fairy Linger, just give in. What's more important than your life? Sima Tu was so scared that he was about to cry. He tried to persuade her again. Yan Beifei, you're courting death. What did your father teach you? A male dog? You're in heat everywhere. Huanglinger's face was cold and she did not speak. However, Jiang Tian sneered and narrowed his eyes at Yan Beifei. Who told you to speak nonsense? You're just a servant. What right do you have to speak? Seeing this, Sima Tu's heart was filled with despair. He wanted nothing more than to cover Jiang Tian's mouth. Yan Beifei was enraged. He laughed sinisterly. Haha, I didn't expect a servant disciple to be so arrogant and dare to provoke me. I'm going to tear you to pieces. It's over. I must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have such a stupid teammate. Sima too was pounding his chest and stamping his feet. He suddenly felt that Huang Liang, who had left the team earlier, was extremely wise. This odd job worker surnamed Jiang was not simply a burden. He was clearly a star of misfortune. When the giant palm was less than 100 meters away from the 3 of them, Sima too was in despair. He wanted to close his eyes to relieve the terrifying pressure and fear. Suddenly, he saw a dazzling light shoot out from the bow of the flying boat. That light was a blade light. It was extremely sharp and dazzling, like a bolt of lightning that pierced through the heavens and earth. Ah! Yan Beifei let out a miserable cry. The heaven's net palm, which was extremely tough and solid and could block the attacks of Dao soldiers, was cut in half at the wrist. Countless drops of divine blood splattered, dyeing the earth and sky red. Jiang Tian stepped out from where the blade light rose. He sneered and said, "How dare you blaspheme my woman? How is this possible?" At that moment, be it Yan Beifei or Sima Tu, all of them were dumbfounded. Their gazes of disbelief were focused on Jiang Tian at the same time. Jiang Tian's initially hunched back straightened suddenly. Instantly, he became as majestic as a mountain. His head of white hair turned black, leaving only 2 streaks of white on his temples. However, it made him look even more gloomy and profound. His initially murky eyes became clear and sharp instantly. His aura was oppressive. In an instant, he turned from an ordinary middle-aged man into a young man who stood proudly like a true god that had descended to the world. So it's a big shot who hid his strength. Sima Tu's eyeballs almost popped out in disbelief. In reality, there were too many cultivators who hid their trump cards and cultivation levels. It was not surprising at all. Sima Tu was also experienced and could more or less tell. However, it was definitely the first time he had seen someone like Jiang Tian who was completely like an ordinary person with both body and spirit. There were no traces of a cultivator at all. Damn it! How dare an ant like you injure me? Yan Beifei was completely enraged. He did not use his full strength earlier on. It was merely a casual attack from his Dharma power. It was merely a golden core dermic art. However, Jiang Tian's saber swept through the heavens and destroyed his Dharma power. For a paragon like him, this was a huge humiliation. A mere servant with a mere nascent soul cultivation. How could he injure me if he didn't rely on a Dao weapon? Yan Beifei's gaze landed on Jiang Tian's hands. When he saw that the latter was wielding a black saber, he could not help but reveal a look of disdain. The saber was black and oddly shaped like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Layers of scales shone on it. It was forged countless times. So it's a Dao weapon. He didn't injure Yan Beifei with his own strength? Sima Tu was enlightened. However, even if Jiang Tian relied on a Dao weapon to injure him, Sima Tu was still shocked by his cultivation and guts. One had to be at the nascent soul realm to be able to use a Dao weapon. Furthermore, this lad was way too daring. Sima Tu knew that even if he carried a Dao weapon, he would not dare to resist at all. After all, the suppression of one's cultivation was no joke. Whoosh! Jiang Tian did not even wait for Yan Beifei to attack. His body swayed and he traversed dozens of miles in a flash, arriving in front of Yan Beifei. His movement technique was unbelievably fast. What? Yan Beifei was shocked. Even the pores on Jiang Tian's face could be seen clearly. His gaze was cold and emotionless. He had never seen a nascent soul cultivator who was so fast in his life. He had completely ignored the existence of space. Chapter 2036. Could it be that this kid has a celestial grade nascent soul? Yan Beifei instantly realized that he had met the strongest opponent in his life. The vigilance in his heart instantly soared to the extreme, and his potential was stimulated to the limit. Kill! With a furious roar, Yan Beifei's eyes widened as he unleashed all his cultivation. Boom! His divine treasures rumbled, and the god in his body opened his eyes, which shone like giant lamps. His aura rose steadily until it reached the 3rd level of the soul formation realm. Countless sage-grade laws and great Daos appeared around him, turning into attacks that blasted toward Jiang Tian. He stepped into the void, and his body swayed like a fish in the water or an eagle in the sky. He used a physical technique to dodge Jiang Tian's attack. At the same time, a flying sword flew out of his storage ring and pierced through the air toward Jiang Tian's spirit embryo. His Taoist robes fluttered, and his hairpin, waist token, thumb ring, bracelet, and other protective Dharma treasures shone brightly. Light filled the sky, and in an instant 13 layers of protective shields were formed. Yan Beifei's cultivation was very solid, and he had rich combat experience. His reaction was both offensive and defensive, which dazzled Sima Tuesday. He sighed. Fellow Taoist Jiang is also a talent, but the opponent he met today is too strong. He must be killed in one strike. There can't be a second strike. Even Huanglinger was sweating for Jiang Tian, and her gaze was extremely nervous. Although she had heard of Jiang Tian's deeds in the Eastern Empire, his valiant battle record, and his fierce reputation, she had never seen it with her own eyes. Moreover, what Jiang Tian wanted to do now was to kill in one strike. After all, Skylark and the others were not far away. Once Yan Beifei sent out a message, a large number of Tian Luo Sect's reinforcements would immediately arrive. Jiang Tian's plan to hide his cultivation and identity would definitely be exposed. In fact, she was worrying too much. Jiang Tian's mysterious art of deceiving heaven and earth had already reached an unimaginable level, and he had already isolated everything here. "You're just an ant," Jiang Tian snorted. He did not even use the strange knife in his hand. He just casually pointed at Yan Beifei's chest and divine treasures. A beam of light intertwined with darkness and brightness shot out in an instant. The chaos was mixed with countless rays of true thunder that could destroy all things. It was full of chaos, disorder, and vitality, but it also carried the overbearing power of the god of destruction. Hongming's god-slaying finger. This was a technique that could only be mastered after reaching the god realm. It was no longer a technique of the immortal realm. They were supreme, powerful, and capable of exterminating all gods. Jiang Tian was using it with a divine-grade nascent soul, but it was like a 3-year-old kid shooting randomly with a machine gun. Yet he was still able to kill a tiger. Rumble! At that moment, this ray of light annihilated space and even stopped time. Countless mysterious runes were engraved on it, and they revolved around it. Divine lightning with green radiance appeared out of nowhere, and like the fingers of an ancient god, it easily pierced through the 13 layers of protective light shields, corporeal body, and divine treasures to reach the god. After that, under Yan Beifei's roar of disbelief, the god's eyes suddenly dimmed. A hole appeared in his chest. With that hole as the core, cracks spread out like a spider web. In an instant, it covered the entire god and his divine treasures. The next moment, Yan Beifei's entire body suddenly exploded. Divine blood splashed everywhere, dyeing the ground and the sky red. Even his divine soul did not manage to escape. It was crushed by Hongming's god-slaying finger easily. In the truest sense of the word, he had perished. Even before he died, Yan Beifei's eyes were still wide open and his face was filled with shock. He could not believe that such a servant could be so powerful. After killing Yan Beifei, Jiang Tian felt much better. After all, he was the son of his master in his previous life, and he often humiliated him. The Linyang family was destroyed and his hands were stained with blood. Jiang Tian hated him deeply. Now he had finally taken his revenge. This is too terrifying. He killed a soul formation cultivator with one finger. Sima too was so scared that his whole body trembled. He looked at Jiang Tian with reverence, like a mortal seeing a real god. Jiang Tian was not in a hurry. His face was calm. If anyone asks, just say that a group of demonic beasts surrounded Yan Beifei and killed him. The demonic aura was too strong, and you could not see what the demonic beasts looked like. With that, he pointed again. The hell-suppressing demon god appeared in a flash and swallowed half of the severed limbs, leaving huge traces of battle on the ground. Its demonic laws lingered on the severed limbs. I understand. Sima too was so scared that his body trembled slightly. He bowed deeply, no longer having any arrogance or disrespect on his face. After doing all this, Jiang Tian stepped into the flying boat. His body bent down again, and he turned back into that decadent, stupid and slow middle-aged mortal without any sharpness to speak of. What happened? Skylark had also sensed Yan Beifei's death through the extinguishing of the soul tablet, and had rushed over as fast as lightning. My senior brother. Where is he? At this time, Skylark saw the blood all over the ground, and had a bad premonition. She stared at everyone with gloomy eyes and asked bitterly, Demon, there's a demon. Huang Linger was so scared that she was trembling. Her face was pale, which was in line with her newcomer exploring the canyon for the first time persona. Her acting skills are really skillful. She has reached the highest level without any traces of acting. Jiang Tian looked at all of this speechlessly. The cultivation world was really too good at training people. Huang Linger was such a simple and even cute person. However, after experiencing the trials and hardships here, she grew up quickly. Reporting to fellow Taoist Skylark, not long after you left, many demon generals drilled out from the ground, and 8 fellow Taoist Yan Beifei. Sima Tu's acting skills were also good. His face was pale, and he was trembling. He even shed fake tears. How could it be so coincidental? We just left a few seconds ago, and demon generals appeared? How did my senior brother die? Tell me the truth. Skylark wasn't lacking in vigilance. He was angry, but he didn't dare to interrogate them. Flying swords with terrifying hostility surrounded Huang Ling, and the others, as if they would be strangled to death in the next moment. He was killed by a demon general. Huang Linger said angrily, I have already sent a message to Saint Qianma. If you have the guts, kill me. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Skylark shouted angrily. Fellow Taoist Skylark, calm down. You don't think that we killed Yan Beifei, do you? Sima Tu said in a panic. Skylark didn't say anything as she stared at the two of them with gloomy eyes. Little Ku and Huang Linger are both at the nascent soul stage. Moreover, Huang Linger is at the 9th stage while Little Ku is only at the 8th stage. How could we have the ability to hurt Yan Beifei? Sima Tu said anxiously. Did he really die at the hands of a demon general? Skylark was helpless to the extreme. After all, what Skylark said made sense. It was impossible for them to rely on their cultivation. Even if they had a holy weapon in their hands, they wouldn't be able to use it. After all, they were only at the nascent soul stage. I'm too unlucky. He was really depressed to the extreme and could only quickly report it to his master, Yan Nancian. After all, he was with Yan Beifei. Now that Yan Beifei was dead and he was fine, what would his master think? Even if he didn't have much responsibility. However, Yan Nancian would definitely vent his anger on him. It was obvious that his future in the Tianluo sect had come to an end. A moment later, Saint Qianma and Lian Huahan arrived on a large flying ship. At this time, Skylark was still leading a group of fellow disciples to surround Huang Linger and protect the scene. They were all wearing sharp armor, and were full of killing intent. Skylark, get out of my way. When Saint Qianma saw this, her face was filled with rage as she roared loudly. Chapter 2037. Senior, please. Skylark was very afraid of Saint Qianma. He was so scared that his body trembled. He cupped his fists and wanted to explain. Fuck your mother. Saint Qianma slapped Skylark to the ground, causing blood to spurt out of his nose and a few teeth to fly out. Saint Qianma suppressed her cultivation. Otherwise, Skylark would have turned into ashes with that slap. It wasn't very harmful to Skylark, but it was extremely insulting. Just a moment ago, he was high and mighty and ordered the other cultivators to leave like a god. But now he was worse than a dog in front of a saint. Saint Qianma sternly shouted, You said that my disciple killed someone. Do you have evidence? Without the slightest evidence, you dare to force him to stay. What are you trying to do? Do you want to start a war with my sect? Is it because I have always been kind to others and have never used my cultivation to suppress others? Do you think that I am easy to bully? Do you think that my Luoying sect is easy to bully? Disciple doesn't dare. Skylark was so scared that he trembled. The other disciples were so scared that they all took a few steps back. At this moment, Yan Nancian and Zhao Feifei, who had received the message, also arrived. Yan Nancian looked at the bloodstains and broken limbs on the ground in horror, and said sadly, What is going on? How did he die all of a sudden? Master, blame disciple for not protecting you well. Senior brother was besieged and killed by the demon generals. Disciple is in so much pain that I want to commit suicide to apologize to the world. Skylark wailed in grief. The other disciples also wiped their tears and showed the sadness they should feel. Pooh, my son. Yen Nancian was so anxious that he directly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body shook and he almost fell from the sky. Although cultivators had gone through hardships, the relationship between father and son was still difficult to break. It was a great sorrow for a white-haired person to send off a black-haired person. It was unbearable for anyone to feel like their heart was being cut by a knife. Master, if you are sad, then cry. Zhao Feifei's face was instantly filled with tears. She grew up in the sect and was childhood sweethearts with Yan Beifei. They had a deep relationship like siblings and lovers. That kind of emotional connection had long been inseparable, like Siamese twins. Now that her senior brother was dead, she felt as if her heart was being torn apart. She was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. Ah, my son. Yen Nancian fell to the ground without a care for his image. He held the sand that was stained with blood and hit the ground with his head. He opened his mouth wide and wailed like a child who had lost his favorite toy. My son Beifei originally had the bearing of a sect master, but he actually died in the hands of a demon. Yen Nancian howled miserably and roared towards the sky. Tears of blood rolled down his cheeks like a magical beast that had lost its cub. Once a cultivator reached the soul formation stage, their flesh and blood would contain their own laws and principles, which would allow them to be reborn from a single drop of blood. However, Yen Beifei's flesh and blood had already been contaminated by the demonic laws. Even his own laws had been destroyed. It was like an ordinary person who had been exposed to nuclear radiation. Even their genetic map and gene sequence had been changed. Naturally, they would not be able to replicate themselves. In other words, Yen Beifei had truly disappeared from this world. There was no possibility of resurrection. Senior Yen, the dead cannot be resurrected. My condolences. That's right, Brother Yen. Beifei died in the hands of the Devil Clan. We shouldn't wallow in grief and be unable to extricate ourselves. Instead, we should pull ourselves together and kill more devils. Only then can we appease his soul in heaven. Lian Huahan and the others all went forward to persuade him. It was not completely out of politeness or pretense. Instead, it was a form of grief. This world was very dangerous and constantly changing. Who knew if they would be the next to die? Ling, this has nothing to do with you. Don't feel burdened. Continue to look for that toad. However, Saint Qianma ignored him. Her face was full of disdain. She was just short of saying that he deserved to die. Yes, Elder. Huang Linger bowed deeply and was about to leave. Wait. Suddenly Yen Beifei stared at Huang Linger and said coldly, Senior, what can I do for you? Huang Linger's pretty face, which had just regained its color, turned pale again. She was trembling with fear. Her delicate posture caused Saint Qianma to protect her. She looked at Yen Nancian coldly and said, Linger, don't be afraid of him. I'm here. Yen Nancian did not even look at Saint Qianma. Instead, he continued to stare at Huang Linger. I'm watching you. Be careful. Don't let me catch your tail. Huang Linger's face turned serious. She looked at Yen Nancian for a moment. Seeing that he had nothing else to say, she said, Senior, are you done? Can I go now? Go. Yen Nancian gnashed his teeth as he glared at Huang Ling. After a dozen flicks of his fingers, he coldly shouted, Master, let me watch her. I'm willing to make up for my mistakes. If senior brother's death is related to this woman, I will definitely find evidence and kill her to comfort senior brother's soul in heaven. Skylark threw herself at Yen Nancian's feet and said with a sobbing tone. Yen Nancian looked down at Skylark. His eyes were cold as he said coldly, You're too useless. You can't even figure out who killed Beifei even though you're so close to him. What use do I have for you? Master, I'm sorry. Don't kill me. Skylark was so scared that her soul almost left her body. She flew backward like a meteor while begging for mercy frantically. Seniors, fellow Taoists, please help me put in a good word. However, before she could finish her words, Yin Nancian pointed at her in the air, and she let out a miserable scream. Looking at her chest, there was a terrifying bloody hole. Her heart was cold. Her divine treasure was pierced through. Her god was obliterated. And her cultivation was destroyed. Ah, master, you're so cruel. Skylark was stunned for a moment. A deep look of despair appeared on her face. Then, she fell to the ground and cried out miserably. What a disgrace. If this old man was ruthless, you would have lost your dog life long ago. Yin Nancian's face was cold as he ordered. None of you should pay attention to him. Leave him here, and let him perish on his own. Yes. Sect Master. Many of the Tian Luo sect's disciples responded in unison. Their voices were trembling slightly. This punishment was even more terrifying than death. Leaving a person with no cultivation in a place full of demonic creatures. Death was indeed terrifying, but the process of waiting for death was even more terrifying. Ah, master, no. Skylark screamed miserably as tears of blood flowed from her eyes. Her miserable screams made one's hair stand on end. However, not many people sympathized with her. This person had always liked to bully others with his master's power. He relied on Yin Nancian's name to bully the kind and act tyrannically. It was only natural that she would suffer a backlash today. Zhao Feifei, take a few disciples and keep an eye on them. Yin Nancian glanced coldly at Huang Linger. He didn't hide his suspicion of her. I understand. Zhao Feifei stared at Huang Linger and gritted her teeth. Her beautiful eyes were filled with murderous intent, and her gaze was extremely cold. Chapter 2038. Lian Huahan was very indifferent towards this. She felt that Huang Linger was a troublemaker and did not care at all. Saint Qianma could only sigh softly and did not say anything else. Otherwise, she would be too protective. Every path had its own side. This is not your sect's territory. It's a public area. Can't you allow others to follow you? Huang Linger's expression did not change. She said goodbye to Lian Huahan and Saint Qianma and boarded the flying boat. They continued to fly towards the east in search of the flaming red frog. Zhao Feifei followed them on her sword. Behind her were a few fellow soul formation cultivators. They wanted to find evidence that Huang Linger was hiding her cultivation level. As long as Huang Linger's cultivation level was strong, they could explain Yin Beifei's sudden death. The murderer would be Huang Linger. After activating the shield restriction, Huang Linger looked at Jiang Tian and said worriedly, "This is troublesome. With her watching, you'll be exposed sooner or later. But if you attack, you'll also be exposed." Zhao Feifei should have activated the surveillance Dharma device, so that she could transmit Jiang Tian and Huang Linger's every move to Yin Nancian. In other words, once Jiang Tian was exposed, Jiang Tian would have to face Yin Nancian, who was a half-saint, or the entire Tian Luo sect's experts. Thinking of this, Sima Tu's face was filled with fear. He said with a trembling voice, "This is troublesome. I'm afraid I'll have to die with you." Jiang Tian took out a green wine pot from his bosom and sipped a mouthful of fruit wine. He exhaled a breath with a sweet smell of wine and said lazily, "That's right. Don't worry. Sometimes, I don't have to do anything if I want someone to die. I've said that I've been to this area many times. I have the advantage of the terrain." He patted Sima Tu's shoulder and smiled. Sima Tu was skeptical. His expression was terrible, and his heart was in a mess. He was in no mood to care about Jiang Tian. There seems to be human cultivators fighting in front? Sima Tu suddenly exclaimed. "Let's go and take a look." Jiang Tian had long seen two factions facing each other in a valley. There were hundreds of cultivators on each side, and the atmosphere was tense. Jiang Tian recognized one of them. It was Lin Yang and Fang Goyu. There were already several corpses lying on the ground. The other side was the Qishan sect, one of the top 20 sects in the continent. Among them, a few forces mediated. Jiang Tian did not enter immediately. Instead, he landed on a mountain peak in the periphery. There were dozens of cultivators watching and discussing. What's going on? Why are they arguing? Hey. General Lin Yang led a team to hunt down a 5-colored ironback flying centipede. They had already surrounded it and beaten it half to death. They were about to capture it. At this moment, the Zongzi of the Qishan sect, Su Jiahao, suddenly appeared with a group of people and beheaded the centipede. Now both sides are fighting over this centipede. 5-colored ironback flying centipede? This is a very rare demonic beast. It can concoct pills and refine weapons. It's priceless. No wonder they're fighting. In my opinion, the Qishan sect is too despicable. They're always scavenging. Previously, our sect caught a 4-tailed golden fur mouse. Damn it, we chased it for 300,000 miles. We were so tired that we vomited blood, and so was the golden fur mouse. In the end, they snatched it away. That's right. The Qishan sect is known as a scavenger sect. They like to watch others fight to the death. They secretly pick up equipment. When our waterfall sect fought with Qingsong Fort last year, they also picked up a lot of treasures. Too shameless. Our blood scythe sect was also scavenged by them. Us too. For a moment, the entire place was filled with condemnation. It seemed that the Qishan sect had indeed angered everyone. In the field, the Zongzi of the Qishan sect, Su Jiahao, said without any shame. You just said that you beat this centipede half to death and took credit for it. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to kill it. I can also say that I met it half a year ago and beat it until it was on the verge of death. How can you be a human? You can't be too greedy and want to take advantage of everything. If you really have the ability, you should have killed it. Lin Yang was so angry that he vomited blood. He said coldly, twisting the truth and slandering others. Do you have any shame? If you hadn't suddenly attacked, we would have killed it in a matter of seconds. This time, I won't argue with you. I still have to continue scavenging. Oh no, slaying demons and demons. Su Jiahao smiled coldly and said threateningly. But if you interfere with me again, I won't be polite. Forget it. Lin Yang, they have more people. We can't take advantage of them. Lin Yang was about to explode when Fang Goyu stopped him. However, although Lin Yang was angry, he also knew that Fang Goyu's words were not without reason. They did have many soul formation cultivators. He sighed, then pulled himself together and waved his hand. Let's go, let's continue. You want to fight with me? You're still too young. In this world, there's no treasure that I can't pick up. No waste that I can't pick up. Su Jiahao was so proud that he laughed with his hands on his hips. This was the sect's motto. They were not ashamed of the disgust and disdain around them. Instead, they were proud of it. Jiang Tian stood on the flying boat and narrowed his eyes as he slowly opened his mouth and said, Your Qishan sect is simply a nest of maggots and a swarm of flies. Seeing a bit of sweetness and a bit of feces, you all pounce on it. My grandfather, it's not enough for you to offend the Tian Luo sect. Do you want to offend the Qishan sect? Beside him, Sima too was so scared that he almost fainted. Who is this? Who dares to offend the Qishan sect? Yes. Looking at his robe and his lack of cultivation, he should be a servant hired by the Luoying sect? Is he courting death? Not only him, but everyone present looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief, as if they were looking at a madman. Although the Luoying sect emphasized love and equality, and would probably protect a servant in this critical juncture. However, they could protect him for a while, but they couldn't protect him forever. When they got out of the canyon, wouldn't it be easy for them to find a chance to kill you? Huang Linger was also puzzled, but she immediately understood. Oh, I understand. Back then, Jiang Tian lived in the Eastern Empire for a period of time, and was friends with Lin Yang and the others. She thought that Jiang Tian was trying to help his friends. However, it wasn't that simple. At this moment, Jiang Tian was trying to provoke more enemies. There were more uses later. Bastard, are you courting death? A little servant dares to provoke me. When Su Jiahao heard this, he immediately flew into a rage. He was often insulted, but this was the first time he had been insulted as badly as Jiang Tian. Bastard, don't talk nonsense. If you can kill your grandfather, you're capable. Abba. What's going on? If I'm your grandfather, wouldn't I be a fly too? Jiang Tian put his hands in his sleeves, like a street gangster, a idler in a village, so angry that he almost vomited blood. Kill him. Even if Saint Qianma asks, I'm in the right. A servant insulted me like this. If I don't kill him, should I wait? Su Jiahao shouted angrily and waved his hand, leading hundreds of cultivators towards Jiang Tian. Chapter 2039. Let's go. Jiang Tian retreated into the flying boat and shouted. Okay. Huanglinger seemed to have woken up from a dream and controlled the flying boat to run away. At this time, Zhao Feifei also caught up and asked, Su Zongzi, what's going on? Why did you? Damn it, this damn servant dares to scold me. He's going too far. Su Jiahao immediately gave a concise explanation, and then asked, What are you guys doing? This person is strange. Could it be that Beifei's death is related to him? Zhao Feifei's attention was focused on Jiang Tian for the first time and she frowned. Hearing the question, she came back to her senses and said, Among the three of them, one of them might have killed my husband. What? Su Jiahao was shocked and then said, Then we can't let them go. He immediately chased after them. 100 miles away, in a floating fortress, hundreds of nascent soul cultivators stood on their swords and guarded the entire sky. Their murderous aura was so dense that not even a fly could get past them. On the wall of the fortress, a man and a woman were strolling. The man was tall and mighty. He was wearing a dragon robe and a flat crown. He had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, a straight nose, and a square mouth. He was extremely handsome. Each and every one of his movements was full of discipline, unrestrained and domineering, as if he was a natural-born emperor. It was the Yachang Emperor. The woman next to him was wearing purple crystal armor. She had a graceful figure and exquisite curves, giving people a sense of fitness and strength. Especially her pair of long legs. They were even more eye-catching. It was Princess Mou. Mou, the East and Mou countries used to be at war in history, but that was because the mortal empires were plundered and exploited by the hidden sections. Resources were scarce and they had no choice but to fight among themselves. The Yachang Emperor spoke with confidence and assurance. But now, the empire has changed to a county system and is thriving. Its potential has been stimulated, and it already has the capital to compete with the hidden sections. We should forget the disputes in history, put aside the disputes, and work together to fight against the hidden sects. Mou shook her head gently and smiled. The East Empire has been poor and weak for many years. It has just recovered and is now recuperating. It doesn't want to provoke any forces, and only wants to develop itself. The Yachang Emperor chuckled. Mou, you're too childish. Do you think you can develop peacefully just because you want to? Ever since the reform of the prefectures and counties, the power of the secular empires had risen. They had already become a thorn in the side of the sects. Now we have to strike first to gain the upper hand. Mou smiled bitterly. This isn't something that I can decide alone. The entire Eastern royal family thinks the same way. The Yachang Emperor pondered for a while, but his gaze suddenly became gentle and affectionate. Mou, even if you don't have the heart to fight against the hidden sects, the alliance between our two countries is necessary. Alliance? Of course. Mou smiled. However, the two countries must reach a consensus in certain aspects. Otherwise, there will be no basis for an alliance. Mou, I still have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it or not. The Yachang Emperor smiled. You've always been an upright person. How can you be so sloppy? There's no harm in saying it. Mou didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In my opinion, the best alliance is a marriage alliance. If we become Dao companions, I'll definitely make you my empress and dote on you for the rest of your life. Emperor Yachang said affectionately. Let's not talk about this anymore. Mou shook her head gently, but her tone was very firm. For some reason, Jiang Tian's figure and that unscrupulous smile instantly appeared in her mind. Why? The Yachang Emperor's face was surprised, and immediately revealed a look of realization. Don't tell me you still miss that imperial advisor Xiqing? Let's not talk about this anymore. Why? The Yachang Emperor was very unwilling. He felt that Eastern Lu and the entire Eastern royal family, except for Mou, were all trash. If it weren't for the sudden appearance of imperial advisor Xiqing more than 10 years ago, suppressing the feudal lords, sweeping through the demon race, and reforming the county system, the Eastern Empire would have long collapsed. He had an idea. After marrying Mou, he would provoke her ambition bit by bit, get rid of Eastern Lu, and establish her as the empress. Then, the Eastern Empire would also be his, and they could even merge into one. Why? Is there a need to ask? Because you're too ugly. Suddenly, a voice filled with disdain could be heard coming from the distance. Eldest Princess Mou covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly, destroying the atmosphere. On the other hand, the Yachang Emperor was furious. Who dares to disturb my palace? Hunt him down. Immediately. Whoosh! The Yachang Emperor's guards, numbering more than 100 people, were basically above the nascent Soul Realm. There were even 3 Soul Formation Realm experts leading the way, and they chased after Jiang Tian's flying ship. You can't catch up. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The small flying ship was unleashed to the extreme, and the sound of it breaking through the air was ear-piercing. It streaked across the sky and shuttled between the mountains and steep ridges. What's going on? I don't know. Could it be that there's some treasure on that flying ship? Let's catch up and take a look. For a moment, the scene became incomparably spectacular, and a few more sects joined in the fun. Countless cultivators followed Jiang Tian, looking like a group of big cats chasing a mouse. Sima too was scared silly when he saw this scene. He felt that Jiang Tian was a scammer. Along the way, he courted death and provoked many people, and many forces chased after him frantically. The Yachang Emperor was just one of them. Jiang Tian sipped the fruit wine gently and said unhurriedly, "Air faster. Ling, go a little faster. You look like you're running for your life in a panic." "Oh, you're wrong. What do you mean by look like? It's obviously him." Sima too wanted to cry but had no tears. He only felt that teaming up with Jiang Tian was the stupidest decision in his life. "Yes, I understand." Huang Linger responded and controlled the flying ship, as if she was running for her life in a panic. She broke all the giant trees along the way and fell into the water. When she crossed the mountains and ridges, she even caused huge rocks to roll. She looked panicked and frightened. The way she hid and fled made the cultivators chasing after her even bolder. For a moment, it seemed that Jiang Tian was a rat crossing the street, and everyone could step on him. "Kill! Stop that madman!" For a moment, the sound of shouting and killing was earth-shattering, setting off monstrous waves. The chasing team stretched for hundreds of miles, which was a magnificent sight. This was very rare in the history of exploring the Liminal Canyon. Because of the existence of the demon race, the forces on the continent were relatively united, so such a large-scale chase was extremely rare. In particular, hundreds and thousands of cultivators chasing after a small flying ship was even more strange. No way. The Qishan sect, the Tianluo sect, the Black Moon Empire, the Feiyun sect. So many forces are chasing after one person? Who is this person? How did he offend so many big shots? Does he want to die? He must be one of those death-seeking experts. When countless cultivators saw this scene, they were extremely shocked and discussed animatedly. None of them dared to believe it. "If you don't stop, I'll kill you." Clang! One of the personal guards of the Yachang Emperor, a Soul Formation Realm cultivator, directly attacked Jiang Tian's flying ship. "Where do you think you're going?" Su Jiahao attacked brazenly. Immediately, many cultivators attacked. Dharma treasures and Dao weapons pierced the sky and flew toward the flying ship as if they were free. "Kill them." Seeing this, Zhao Feifei also attacked. Originally, she wanted to collect evidence and confirm that Huang Linger was the murderer before killing her. Then the Luoying sect had nothing to say. But now Jiang Tian had offended so many people. If they attacked him together, the law would not be able to control the masses. Zhao Feifei didn't care whether Huang Linger was killed unjustly or not. As the saying goes, she would rather kill by mistake than let go. In an instant, it was as if Jiang Tian and Huang Linger had fallen into a life-and-death situation. Chapter 2040. Ask for help from Saint Qianma. Sima Tu screamed and his face turned pale. "Don't panic." Jiang Tian was calm and composed. Under the guidance of Jiang Tian, Huang Linger controlled the flying boat agilely. The flying boat was like a butterfly, shuttling through all kinds of Dharma artifacts. Although it was dangerous, it was more frightening than dangerous. At least they didn't suffer any substantial damage. Charge in. Seeing that the time was ripe, Jiang Tian pushed Huang Linger aside, took over the rudder, and drove the flying boat into a no-man's land. No Man's Land was a habitual name for the extremely dangerous area. This kind of place was extremely dangerous. The Dharma of devils was very heavy. The divine sense and Dharma power of the cultivators were restricted. A large number of soul formation realm fiends would appear. Generally speaking, the probability of human soul formation realm cultivators dying in this place was extremely high. Only saints had a chance to protect themselves. Now, seeing that the flying boat had plunged into the no man's land, the cultivators chasing behind were all stunned and stopped in their tracks. Let's go in too. Those nascent soul realm weaklings can go in. What are we afraid of? Seeing this, Su Jiahao was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, he raised his arm and led the team in. Let's go in too. Zhao Feifei was even more suspicious of Huang Linger and Jiang Tian. She raised her eyebrows and shouted, "Whoosh whoosh whoosh." Many cultivators also stepped on their swords and entered. Are we not as good as a woman? The three soul formation realm cultivators, the leaders of the Yachang Emperor's guards, looked at each other and led the cavalry in. Rumble. The cavalry was like a dragon. The cold light shone on their iron clothes. They entered like a tornado with the momentum of a dragon. The royal guards of the Yachang Emperor have entered. The three soul formation realm cultivators are all experienced figures. We shouldn't be afraid. The few forces outside found that there were no fiends or fiend generals, so they immediately let down their guard. Their courage increased and they all rushed in. After entering the no man's land, Huang Linger immediately felt that her divine sense was greatly limited. It was less than 1/10 of the original. In reality, she was not the only one who was like this. Everyone was like this. However, Jiang Tian's soul-devouring soul consciousness was originally a demon soul consciousness, so it was even more beneficial. Its range of observation was instantly doubled, and it was even sharper. Even the slightest details could not escape his senses. Moreover, Jiang Tian drove the flying boat even faster than before. It was 10 times faster than before, and it was completely silent. Sima too was almost scared silly. Yes, he's using his own magic power to accelerate the entire flying boat. Sima too suddenly understood, but he was even more shocked. It was as if you saw a person running while carrying a motorcycle, but the person was running faster than the motorcycle. Silently, Jiang Tian shook off his pursuers and observed the terrain with a frown. Soon he entered a dense forest. These plants had obviously been demonized. The branches were grotesquely shaped, like the palms of demons. The bark was rugged, as if they had eyes that opened and closed. The most terrifying thing was that there were many devil fruits growing on them, which looked like skulls. Let's go down. Jiang Tian was the first to jump off the flying boat. He was neither fast nor slow, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. Those devil fruits opened their mouths and made a biting action. They stared viciously at the three of them and discussed with each other. TSK, someone's coming. Eat them. Don't panic. They have no taste and don't taste good raw. Get some devil fire, and roast them until they're medium rare. Sprinkle some black devil chili and they'll be fragrant. Although they were just talking and did not launch any substantial attacks, Sima too, who saw it for the first time, was so scared that his legs went soft. Brother Jiang, let's go back. It's okay. These devil fruits can't hurt people at all. Jiang Tian smiled calmly. He raised his hand and chopped down with his saber, chopping off a devil fruit. Humans are so scary. Quiet. He didn't notice us. Stop trembling. Who's trembling? Seeing this, the devil fruits immediately trembled in fear. They closed their eyes tightly and pretended to be ostriches. Jiang Tian crushed a devil fruit. The red and white jam emitted a pungent smell and splashed all over Huang Linger. Ouch. This is so smelly. Huang Linger couldn't help but pout. She had an aggrieved look on her face like a little girl. It's nothing. With this we'll be safe. Then, we'll lure them into the tiger's den and attract their firepower for us. Jiang Tian took a few more devil fruits and crushed them. He smeared jam all over Sima Tu's body before he explained leisurely and smeared jam all over himself and Sima Tu's body. After everyone chased into this no man's land, they did not see Jiang Tian and Huang linger. Su Jiahao could not help but say angrily, "This old man is so evil. This rotten old man is too bad. His mouth is full of shit. Where is he hiding? Have you become a coward?" After entering the no man's land, they did not see any demon generals or demonic creatures. For a moment, everyone was relieved. Since there are no demonic creatures in the no man's land, we'll find them and kill them even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Zhao Feifei's face was beautiful and her voice was cold. She looked as vicious as the bearded man. "Bastard! Come out, you lowly servant. You're like an ant. How dare you insult our emperor? I'll tear you to pieces. Old man, you're just good at talking. Come out and fight with us if you have the guts. Why don't you dare to come out? Cowardly rats who only know how to hide in the dark are despicable and shameless." The rest of the cultivators were all cursing as they searched. Whoosh! At this moment, everyone saw Jiang Tian driving a flying boat and speeding towards them like a train. "Fellow cultivators, run for your lives. A terrifying demonic beast is about to attack," Jiang Tian shouted. "Do you think I'm scared? Childish." Su Jiahao glared and chased after him crazily with the cultivators of Qishan sect. "Where do you think you're going?" The Yachang Emperor's iron guards also chased after him like a swarm of bees. "Don't let this old man escape. Stop him. Surround him." Shouts and roars were endless. All the major forces chased after him and pounced on him from all directions. This time, Jiang Tian's speed seemed to be a little slower. Soon he was surrounded by these cultivators in 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. "Let's see where you can run to this time." Su Jiahao gritted his teeth. "You're useless. You only have a stupid mouth. I'm going to cut off your lips and feed them to the dogs." Zhao Feifei's pretty face also seemed to be covered with 10,000 years of frost. She said coldly, "Huang Linger, tell me the truth. Did you kill my husband? Tell me the truth, and I'll leave your corpse intact." "Fellow cultivator Zhao, give me some face. Long live the emperor. I want this old man's head." The 3 soul formation realm guards of the Yachang Emperor also said coldly. At this moment, all the cultivators present were very arrogant and looked at Jiang Tian with disdain, as if he was a lamb that could be slaughtered at any time. "Zhao Feifei, I did kill Yan Beifei." Jiang Tian suddenly chuckled. "How can you admit it? No matter how strong you are, you'll definitely die if they attack you together." At the side, Sima Tu was so scared that he almost fainted. "You." Zhao Feifei's expression changed and endless anger surged in her eyes. She took out her Dharma treasure and was about to attack. "Fellow cultivator, wait. Listen to me." Jiang Tian waved his hand unhurriedly. "All right. Let's see how you're going to deny it." Zhao Feifei was ready to attack. Jiang Tian smiled and said, "I can understand that you want to avenge your husband. But don't kill Qingqing." "What did you say?" Zhao Feifei flew into a rage, but her heart was indeed somewhat vigilant. Since this person was able to kill Yan Beifei without a sound, he must be extremely powerful and unimaginable. "Haha, I'm here. Do you think you can still turn the tables? Bastard, you'll pay with your life for my sons." At this moment, Yan Nancian also rushed over. His eyes were filled with hatred, and he wanted nothing more than to tear Jiang Tian apart. "Senior Yan. Sect Master. We're relieved that you're here." When everyone saw that Yan Nancian had arrived, they could not help but feel relieved. All of them looked respectful and cupped their fists. Chapter 2041. Yan Nancian was a half-step void return cultivator, and could be called a half-saint. In addition, there were more than a dozen soul formation cultivators present, which was equivalent to a void return saint. In their opinion, Jiang Tian's background was strange, but even if he was made of iron, how many nails could he crush? "Sect leader Yan, this has nothing to do with me." Sima Tu was so scared that he sat on the ground, wanting to cry. "Yan Nancian, if you insist on killing me, you will definitely die." Jiang Tian smiled calmly and said, that's right. Why don't you all just leave and keep your lives? Isn't it good to enjoy your next life? Yan Nanqian's face was full of mockery. Nameless scoundrel, playing tricks. You're about to die, but you're still so stubborn. With a swoosh, the long sword jumped out of the scabbard made of the silver-beard golden-eye dragon's skin, and was about to fly toward Jiang Tian. Sigh. I'm just being nice. Actually, I do have a grudge with you that needs to be settled. But after thinking about it, I'll kill you myself another day. I don't want to borrow the hands of others to vent my hatred. But since you don't listen to me and insist on dying, I can only use your blood to dye this demonic land red. Jiang Tian shook his head and sighed, looking very helpless. Haha, an old man like you dares to boast so shamelessly. Su Jiahao looked up and laughed. This is the best joke I've heard this year. One of the soul formation guards of the Yachang Emperor also sneered. You're so stubborn. You're about to die, but you're still talking nonsense. Zhao Feifei's face was full of disdain. Cultivators were all pragmatic people. Compared to their lives, dignity and face were not worth mentioning. Yan Nanqian's face was livid. I don't want to talk nonsense with you anymore, he said coldly. He was about to release his flying sword. Suddenly, the huge mountain beneath their feet split apart, emitting a huge rumbling sound. Dust flew everywhere, and rubble shot through the air. With this loud noise, a vast wave of demonic qi filled the void. Demonic beast. A half-saint. Yan Nanxian was almost scared out of his wits. His face was pale, and he was about to step on his sword and fly away. Suddenly, a huge palm shot out from the crack like lightning and grabbed Yan Nanxian like a whirlwind. No. Yan Nanxian was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His precepts surged like a tide, and fragments of the great Tao shot out. The Dharma treasures on his body exploded one by one. However, it was useless. His magic power was corroded by the devil qi. Bam! Yan Nanxian was easily crushed, and fresh blood spurted out from the gaps between the giant fingers. Pieces of his internal organs poured out from his mouth, and his divine treasures were all shattered. He was already half dead. Rumble! A demonic beast the size of a giant mountain appeared in front of everyone. The demonic beast looked like a giant ape, but there were huge bone spikes protruding from its back. Each of the bone spikes was emitting a black demonic aura, and they pierced into the sky like peerless spears. Moreover, this monster ape had a pair of fleshy wings on its back. Its fascia was tough, and when it spread its wings, it covered the sky and covered the sun. There were also dark and murderous demonic laws that turned into iron chains that extended in all directions. They were as if they were real, and they made clanking sounds. Yan Nanxian could not resist at all in its hands. He could only desperately beg for mercy. Listening to his miserable howls and looking at his sorry appearance, Jiang Tian felt a burst of joy and relief in his heart. No matter what, I have taken revenge. The boundless hatred in his previous life was like a huge rock in his heart. Now it was finally lifted. This monster ape emitted a demonic aura that seemed to be real like stormy waves. It dispelled magic power, disintegrated Taoist heart, and made people's demonic thoughts grow. They were almost instantly assimilated. Under the rolling demonic aura, cultivators fell to the ground one by one. They screamed as they fell, and their bodies went limp. On one hand, it was the erosion of the demonic laws. On the other hand, it was purely because they were scared. The spiritual impact was too terrifying. Heaven-carrying demonic ape, someone screamed, and Wu Bian said in horror. A heaven-carrying demonic ape with 100,000 years of cultivation. It once killed a saint. Huff huff worm white and tender worm. Sweet. The heaven-carrying demonic ape pursed its lips and whistled. It raised its hand and stuffed Yan Nanxian into its mouth, chewed a few times and swallowed him. Run. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. One had to know that Yan Nanxian was a half-saint. However, they were swallowed without being able to put up any resistance. The crowd was even more vulnerable. Whoosh! Su Jiahao was the first to run. He was a scavenger, and liked to take advantage of opportunities. He did not do things that would make him lose money. The premise of dealing with Jiang Tian was that there was no risk. Once there was a risk, He would not act brave and ruthless. Moreover, his speed was extremely fast. He broke through space as fast as lightning. Because he was often chased and intercepted when he was scavenging, he had mastered many movement and speed secret techniques. However, they were useless. Whoosh! A demonic chain shot out from the void and instantly pierced his divine treasure, nailing him to the ground like a toad. Ah! It hurts! He let out a miserable scream. It was extremely mournful and primitive. Su Jiahao lost his life in a matter of seconds and truly died on this piece of land. Oh my God! The Qishan sect cultivators who were following behind almost peed their pants when they saw this scene. They turned around and ran. Run! Run! The situation took a sudden turn for the worse, and in an instant, the numerous cultivators that were originally shouting to kill Jiang Tian were instantly terrified to the point of fleeing in a sorry state, and they were terrified like stray dogs. At this moment, the cultivators were shrouded in fear. They only hated that their parents did not give them an extra pair of legs, so that they could run faster. Roar! The heaven-carrying demonic ape let out a furious roar. Bone spikes flew out of its body and descended from the sky. Chains of laws swept across the world, leaving a rain of blood wherever they passed. Roar, 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 roar! Help! No. In an instant, the no man's land instantly turned into hell. The cultivators were killed one after another. Blood dyed the ground red, and their remains and Dharma treasures were scattered everywhere. We can't get out. What should we do? At this moment, Zhao Feifei, who was in a dead end, was as pale as a sheet. Her delicate body trembled, and her heart was filled with endless fear. She had always bullied the weak, and was not weaker than others. She had a strong heart and ruthless means. However, she had never encountered such a terrifying existence. The heaven-carrying demonic ape was extremely powerful. One attack would kill several people and sweep across the area. However, when the cultivator's attacks landed on its body, they were like tickles and were easily disintegrated by the demonic laws. At this moment, she regretted it. When she saw that Jiang Tian and the other two were safe and sound, she understood that she had been used by Jiang Tian. He had clearly lured them into the heaven-carrying demonic ape's attack range. It sounded simple, but it revealed that Jiang Tian had an extremely deep understanding of the critical canyon. He was definitely an old demon. She had underestimated him. Only, she didn't understand how she had offended such an experienced old devil. Chapter 2042. Form the Emperor Ming's demon-destroying formation. Quick, quick, quick. There was no way to escape now. The guards of the Yachang Emperor roared, and commanded the cavalry to form a military formation, wanting to kill their way out. Seeing this, Zhao Feifei seemed to see a glimmer of hope in the endless darkness. Her dim eyes shone with hope. The greatest function of a battle formation was to gather sand into a tower and gather cultivation. Perhaps they could really kill their way out. However, the flame of hope in her heart was instantly extinguished by the cruel reality. It was useless. Bang! 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 Bone spikes rampaged, iron chains flew across the sky, and the cavalry formation was instantly destroyed. Blood rained down from the sky, and screams rose and fell one after another. The Yachang Emperor's cavalry was instantly wiped out. Not a single one was left, including the 3 soul formation experts. Run! This time, not only Zhao Feifei and the others, but also the cultivators who were watching from the outside. Everyone was scared out of their wits. Roar! At this time the demonic ape roared. Many bone spikes seemed to have a mind of their own as they formed the shape of a millstone in the air. It swept across and killed countless cultivators along the way. Finally, it landed heavily on Zhao Feifei's back. Boom! Crack! Zhao Feifei's divine treasures were all shattered. Her entire body exploded like a firework. Her flesh, broken bones, organs, and magic treasures were all set ablaze and scattered with flames. Until her death, her face was still filled with shock, fear, and unwillingness. It was as if she could not accept that her husband and master had all died here in one day. This was the complete extermination of her family. How did you fool my feelings in my previous life? In your eyes, I was an overconfident clown, a toad who wanted to eat swan meat. When Jiang Tian saw this, a faint smile appeared on his face, and a sense of relief appeared in his heart again. Another grudge had been resolved. In his previous life, Zhao Feifei had deceived his feelings and played him like a monkey. She even helped Yin Nancian take over his body. How much true feelings and how much pretense had completely disappeared with this firework explosion. The millstone was like a giant wheel that crushed the sky. Flesh and blood splattered, and screams filled the sky. In seconds, all the disciples of the Tianluo sect were killed. Whoosh! Seeing the cultivators fleeing in all directions, the heaven-carrying demonic ape flapped its wings and chased after them. For a moment, cries for their fathers and mothers rose and fell one after another. All kinds of miserable screams rang out continuously. The cultivators on the periphery fell like rain. They couldn't wait to escape from this hell on earth. However, no matter how fast they were, they would not be able to escape from the heaven-carrying demonic ape's pursuit. The ape was even faster, and the demonic law chains and bone spikes were his long-range weapons. He would not let any of them escape. However, from the beginning to the end, Jiang Tian sat steadily on the fishing platform, not moving at all. The devil ape, on the other hand, did not even look at them from the beginning to the end. At first, Sima too was so scared that he wanted to run away, but later, he stopped moving. Huang Linger couldn't help but worry at first, but now she also let out a long sigh of relief. In the end, Sima too couldn't hold back his curiosity. He looked at Jiang Tian respectfully and asked, "Fellow cultivator, what's going on?" Huang Linger looked at Jiang Tian, who was calm and collected, and said softly, "Is it because of the jam on our bodies? This is the devil fruit. It's just a name that people habitually call it because of its appearance." Jiang Tian sipped the fruit wine and said casually, "Actually, it's called the filthy fruit. This fruit contains a special demonic aura that counters the heaven-carrying demonic ape. It's said that after being contaminated or eaten, the demonic law of the heaven-carrying demonic ape will be disintegrated. The bone spikes will smile, and the demonic chains will corrode. Therefore, the ape can't wait to avoid it." Sima too looked enlightened at first, then he asked, "Filthy fruit? I've never heard of it. How did you know?" Jiang Tian said calmly, "To me, it's just common knowledge." Sima too was speechless. He was deeply shocked. Huang Linger asked again, "But how did you know that there's a heaven-carrying demonic ape here? Aren't they most afraid of the filthy fruit?" "Sigh. It's very simple." Jiang Tian smiled helplessly. "The heaven-carrying demonic ape will change its bone spikes every 1,000 years. It's like a snake that needs to shed its skin when it grows up. But the bone spikes are stubborn and difficult to shed. They need this kind of filthy fruit to help them loosen the bone spikes. In short, the demonic ape hates the filthy fruit and doesn't even want to touch it. Naturally, it can protect us. But when it needs to shed its bone spikes, it has no choice but to use it. And you can also see that the filthy fruit here is planted neatly. It's obviously cultivated by the demonic ape. Therefore, you can infer that this is the nest of the demonic ape." Jiang Tian said with a smile. Such demonic beasts of the void return level are usually too lazy to go out and hunt humans. After all, soul formation stage humans are just desserts in their eyes. They are unwilling to leave their nest. But if you go to their nest of your own accord, that's a different matter. Sima too looked at Jiang Tian in shock. He was simply omniscient and omnipotent. He actually knew such rare knowledge. And Huang Linger naturally understood. Jiang Tian had lived 2 lives and had gone through ups and downs for countless years. He had seen countless demonic beasts, and was naturally familiar with their habits. In fact, that was indeed the case. Not to mention demonic beasts of the void return level, Jiang Tian had even kept stronger demonic beasts as pets. These little tricks were really nothing to him. Run for your lives. In this no man's land, countless human cultivators were killed, but Jiang Tian had no sympathy. They were here to kill him in the first place, so they deserved to die. In this area, screams were extremely ear-piercing. The heaven-carrying demonic apes battle was also earth-shattering. Don't go over. Demonic beasts of the void return level can suppress sages. That's right, it's a heaven-carrying demonic ape. Don't even mention how terrifying it is. The sect has ordered that this beast likes to hibernate in its nest. It's safe as long as it doesn't enter the no man's land. No one is allowed to enter. Retreat immediately. Even the cultivators within a few thousand miles of the no man's land had heard the news and retreated one after another. So many soul formation cultivators have died. The Tianluo sect has been annihilated. Yan Nanxian's family of 3 loved to bully others. Great, now they're all dead. The Qishan sect is also dead. Hehe, they also have a day like this? I heard that the 3 captains of the Yachang Emperor's guards were all soul formation cultivators. All of them have also died. Everyone was discussing, and some were even gloating. However, they were still extremely afraid of the heaven-destroying demonic ape. Not to mention ordinary sects, the heaven-carrying demonic ape was too powerful. Even sacred grounds and countries had to retreat. My 3 captains of guards have all died there. The Yachang Emperor couldn't help but sigh when he heard the news. After all, they were all experts trained with a lot of money. So what if they're dead? The Iron Hand Saint said coldly. They're too stupid. How could they rush into the demonic ape's nest? Your Majesty, we have to avoid this area. The demonic ape chased them all the way to the border of the no man's land before it stopped and stopped. When it stood at the border of the no man's land and glanced around, the cultivators on the periphery were all scared out of their wits and retreated again. Many people's legs gave out, and they sat on the ground. The Iron Hand Saint frowned and pondered for a while. Suddenly, he looked at the no man's land where the heaven-carrying demonic ape was. However, there seems to be something wrong with the old cultivators around Huanglinger. I have to keep an eye on them. Chapter 2043. However, the heaven-carrying demonic ape was more reluctant to leave its nest. After killing everyone, it did not chase after them. Instead, it turned around and returned to its nest. This no man's land regained its dead silence. Only the thick smell of blood floated in the air. Countless broken limbs were strewn on the ground, and there were also fragments of magic treasures left behind. Everyone marked this no man's land on the map and treated it as a forbidden zone. In the Luoying sect, Saint Qianma frowned and sighed. Linger entered that area. I don't know if she's dead or alive. The demonic aura was too strong, and the laws were eroded. They could not sense the existence of the soul tablet. I'm afraid she's already dead. Lian Huahuan's face was calm, and there was no sympathy. Because this disciple came from a lowly background, and came from the distant Milky Way. The key was that she was ungrateful and repeatedly disobeyed her. She embarrassed herself in front of Yan Nanxian and died cleanly. Not necessarily. Saint Qianma said. I see that their soul tablets are not extinguished yet. They just became weaker. They may be hiding somewhere. I have to save them. Saint, it's too dangerous. Elder, is it worth taking the risk for a nascent soul disciple? Many disciples of the Luoying sect exclaimed and tried to persuade her. Especially Hua Xiangrong and the other disciples of Saint Qianma, they were even more reluctant. Huanglinger was Lian Huahuan's disciple, but she did not care and abandoned her like a worn-out shoe. What's the point of caring about this? Why is it not worth it? Saint Qianma smiled. Life is priceless. Every disciple in the sect, regardless of their cultivation level, is a treasure of the sect. Don't worry. I have experience in dealing with demonic creatures. Nothing will happen to me if I remain stealthy. Many disciples saw this, and although they were worried, they did not say anything. Lian Huahan disagreed. Elder, if you go, I'm afraid it's not safe for me to guard the flying ship alone. This is the base camp of many disciples. Should we consider the overall situation? There's no need to discuss this anymore. I've made up my mind. Saint Qianma frowned and said. I only need 1 day. Go and come back quickly. During this period, all disciples should not go out to look for the silver-rich grass and toads. Return to the flying ship. She glanced at the crowd and instructed earnestly, don't worry. Our focus is on participation, experience, and protecting ourselves. Obtaining treasures is only the second most important thing. In order to find Huanglinger, all disciples must return. When Lian Huahan heard this, She was so angry that she almost vomited blood. However, Saint Qianma's words were reasonable, and she could not refute them. Huanglinger is simply a jinx. You're delaying our search for the silver-rich grass and the toad. At this moment, Lian Huahan wished she could tear Huanglinger to shreds. Zhongnu, for the rest of the day, you'll have to control the overall situation. I'm leaving. Saint Qianma left the flying boat and flew towards the uninhabited area in the east. She quickly disappeared between the rolling devil aura and the lofty mountains. After all the cultivators had died or left, the no-man's land fell into silence. Jiang Tian did not leave this place. Instead, he stood on top of a mountain and observed. Looking at the undulating mountain range, Jiang Tian stroked his chin and sighed as his gaze swept past the few silver-rich grass that only had roots left. Good fellow, this fiery toad has eaten so much good stuff. Isn't it afraid of being stuffed to death? Should we chase after it? Chase. Beside him, Huanglinger asked softly. No. Jiang Tian pondered for a moment before he shook his head slowly. The fiery scarlet toad is simply too fast. Now that it's frightened, it's even faster. It'll be difficult for us to catch up. You can't imagine the speed it's running for its life. Then do you have a countermeasure? Huanglinger could not help but ask when she saw that Jiang Tian seemed to have a card up his sleeve. Jiang Tian smiled calmly and said, That's right. It's full and has been chased for so long. This toad is probably tired and wants to rest. Since it wants to sleep, let's set up a small nest for it. Then it's here. His smile was very bright, revealing his white teeth. As he spoke, he steered the flying boat and flew a few rounds above the no-man's land. Finally, he found a suitable place. This was a rather rare swampland. The mud was as black as oil, and there were countless green rusty skeletons floating in it. It bubbled like boiling water, and black demonic chi filled the air, making one's hair stand on end. This is fucking disgusting. Standing on the shore, Sima Tu's face immediately turned ugly. He was a rough man, but when he saw this scene, he could not help but feel ominous. Huanglinger also held her breath and looked nervous. Both the smell and the corrosion of the demonic chi made her extremely uncomfortable. Jiang Tian looked as if he was used to it. He glanced around and nodded in satisfaction. Senior brother Sima, please plow this swamp for me. The mud must be fresh, like a steaming bun that just came out of the oven. I'll do it. Sima too was very reluctant. I'm an elite disciple of the Sacred Grounds Archaean sect. How can I do this kind of menial work? This is the work of servants, no mortals. Elite disciple? Haha, you're a bug to the heaven-carrying demonic ape. He's not full yet. Should I call him out? Jiang Tian chuckled and said, No, don't call him that. No, there's no need to make it so complicated. I just need to knock the earth filth fruit jam off your body. Don't. It's just a joke. Sima too was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He immediately took action and dived into the swamp. Then, the mud in the swamp began to churn as if it was boiling. Jiang Tian took Huanglinger to prepare other things. In the past few years, Jiang Tian had quietly accumulated a large amount of spirit herbs and medicinal herbs. Many of them were even wood, stone, vine, and grass that Huanglinger couldn't even name. Jiang Tian burned a large number of spirit herbs and elixir herbs to ashes. Then, he took Huanglinger to dig up mud ores that she could not name. Finally, under the guidance of Jiang Tian, the two of them were like children playing with mud. They carefully mixed the mud ores and the ashes into it. What are we going to do? Huanglinger felt as if she had returned to her childhood when she was stirring mud. She recalled her time on Earth and couldn't help but smile. We're going to make a nest for it. Jiang Tian smiled and said, For a toad that's full and tired from running, there's nothing better than a comfortable nest for it to have a good sleep. Of course, as long as it's asleep. I can't say for sure how long it'll take for it to wake up. Speaking of this, Jiang Tian showed a bright smile. There was no more gloominess and depression from before. Huanglinger saw his expression and knew that Jiang Tian was plotting against the flaming red toad. She was very confident in Jiang Tian. Whether it was the heaven-carrying demonic ape or the flaming red toad, Jiang Tian knew their habits like the back of his hand. It was as if he had personally raised them for many years. Chapter 2044. However, she did not ask about the theory behind it anymore. Soon Jiang Tian and Huang Linger made a mud nest. There was a faint smell of grass in the mud nest. This grassy aroma had a spicy smell that could be smelled from far away. The toad must love this nest. It's a standard mansion. Jiang Tian took a sip of fruit wine and smiled in satisfaction. At this time, Sima too had also plowed the swamp. Just as Jiang Tian had requested, it was steaming hot like a freshly baked bun. The demonic qi and miasma seemed to be thicker and could be smelled from far away. Jiang Tian waved his sleeves, and the mud nest fell into the swamp. It slowly sank into the swamp and revealed the entrance of the cave. Everything is ready except for the east wind. Next, we'll have to rely on luck. Jiang Tian pondered for a while and said seriously, "Let's leave here. At least 1,000 miles away. We'll wait for the rabbit." He sighed helplessly. Brother Sima's concealment skills are too bad. No matter how we hide, we'll be discovered. Sima too was embarrassed but could not refute. Seeing that Jiang Tian was serious, everyone immediately left and retreated to a hidden cave 1,000 miles away. That was not enough. Jiang Tian used the mysterious art of deceiving heaven and earth to form a barrier that enveloped Huang Linger and Sima Tuesday. The three of them held their breaths and stared at the mud nest, waiting for the arrival of the fiery scarlet toad. This toad was too important to Jiang Tian. Not only could it increase one's cultivation, but it also hid a huge secret. Time passed slowly, wearing down the three of their patience. Sima too was getting impatient and said in a low voice, "Fellow cultivator, we've waited for so long. Why hasn't the toad come out yet? Could it be that the mud nest had failed? Or was the toad caught by other cultivators? Maybe the mud nest failed." As soon as Jiang Tian finished speaking, Sima too was disappointed. "Let's go out. This is the nest of the heaven-carrying demonic ape. What if it comes out?" "Don't talk nonsense. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll skin you alive and use you as bait to attract the toads." Jiang Tian's words frightened Sima too until his entire body quivered, but he didn't dare to speak anymore. After waiting bitterly for a long time, Jiang Tian's eyes suddenly flashed and he said in a low voice, "Quiet, they're coming." Huang Linger and Sima too, who were originally drowsy, suddenly became alert and stared at the mud pit without moving. True enough. Swoosh. A thin red light flashed and landed on the mud pit. The speed of this red light was too fast. If not for the fact that the three of them were observing with rapt attention and relaxed, they would not have noticed it at all. The light faded, and the three of them immediately saw that it was a toad. At first glance, this toad seemed no different from an ordinary toad. It was only the size of an adult's fist. However, his body was covered with red flame patterns, as if they were natural Tao patterns of raging fire. It had a natural charm of Tao. In addition, his stomach was especially bulging. It was unknown how much he had eaten. In fact, the flaming scarlet toad was indeed priceless. Its great Tao of raging fire could burn space, so its speed was extremely fast. It ate supreme treasure herbs and divine herbs daily. The spiritual qi, laws, and great Tao contained within were hard to calculate. One could imagine how precious it was. After the flaming scarlet toad landed on the swamp, its nostrils flared slightly, smelling the wind and grass around it, appearing very vigilant. It was very obvious that it had been frightened all the way and was very careful. The slightest sound would startle it and make it run far away. Therefore, Jiang Tian was even more cautious. He did not move at all, not even daring to breathe. After a moment, confirming that there was no danger around, the flaming scarlet toad walked toward its cave entrance very carefully. Finally, the flaming scarlet toad stayed at the cave entrance motionlessly for 15 minutes. After confirming that it was safe again, it jumped into the mud pit and dug up some mud to block the cave entrance. At this time, from the outside, the mud pit had already disappeared. There was no trace of it at all. Just as Jiang Tian guessed, it had eaten too many good things and was tired from running. It could not wait to hibernate. However, even though the toad had entered its cave, Jiang Tian did not come out to take the mud pit immediately. Jiang Tian knew the habits of the flaming scarlet toad better than anyone. It was very vigilant and had not truly fallen asleep even now. He could only catch it after it had truly fallen asleep. Otherwise, once it was alarmed, it would be difficult to catch it again. Even void reversion saints would find it difficult. After waiting for a full 2 hours, Jiang Tian pinched his fingers and calculated that the toad should have truly fallen asleep. Only then did he suddenly take out the mud pit and seal it with laws before putting it into his robes. As immovable as a mountain, as swift as fire and as swift as the wind, Su Rulin. Brother, you're brilliant. Sima too flattered. This flattery is not creative at all. It's not an exaggeration to say that if I didn't make a move, even void reversion saints might not be able to take it down. Jiang Tian said delightedly. He took out his flying boat and was about to leave. At this moment, a long rainbow streaked across the sky. Saint Qianma flew over and landed silently. She was pleasantly surprised. Linger, are you all right? Elder, I'm fine. Why are you here? Huang Linger's face immediately lit up with joy. She was not Saint Qianma's disciple, and did not have much contact with her usually. But for some reason, she felt very close to her, much closer than Lian Huahan. I heard that you guys entered the forbidden area of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, so I came to find you guys. Let's go. Saint Qianma said weakly. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine consciousness and found that she had been infected by demonic qi and had injuries on her body. She must have gone through a fierce battle. He could not help but feel touched. Without any nonsense, everyone boarded Saint Qianma's flying boat and flew towards the Luoying sect's large flying boat. Croak, croak. At this moment, the flaming scarlet toad in Jiang Tian's arms cried out. Saint Qianma's beautiful eyes widened as she looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. This is... Senior, I've caught the flaming scarlet toad. Jiang Tian said calmly. He did not hide it. Saint Qianma was sincere and valued righteousness over benefits. Jiang Tian admired her character, so he addressed her as senior and treated her sincerely. Saint Qianma was shocked again. The flaming scarlet toad is extremely fast. Even void reversion saints would find it difficult to catch it. Could it be that you've hidden your cultivation level and are a peerless expert? The more she looked at Jiang Tian, the more she believed in her deduction. Although Jiang Tian looked depressed and dispirited, he was a mediocre middle-aged man who had been destroyed by life. But in essence, Jiang Tian had a carefree temperament. Even when facing him, he was calm and collected. How could he be immortal? Jiang Tian chuckled. Senior, you've overestimated me. Indeed, I've hidden my cultivation level. However, it's not peerless or peerless. My cultivation level is merely at the peak of nascent soul realm. Oh, you're turning into a mortal? Saint Qianma understood immediately. She could not help but think even more highly of Jiang Tian and lamented. I've lived for a few thousand years and have seen many cultivators who have turned into mortals. However, you're the first one who has walked so far on the path of turning into a mortal, completely returning to being ordinary, and becoming one with the mortal world. You're the only one. Congratulations, fellow Taoist. Since you've turned into a mortal so successfully, it shouldn't be a problem for you to turn into a soul formation cultivator. Your future is limitless. Chapter 2045. Saint Qianma's words were not out of politeness or exaggeration. Turning into a mortal was the process of building a foundation in the later stages of cultivation. It was similar to building a solid foundation when building a new building. Not only would it affect the soul formation realm, it would also affect the void reversion realm, Tao integration realm, and even the final tribulation to become an immortal. Thank you, Senior. Jiang Tian replied politely as well. Seeing how mystical Jiang Tian was, Saint Qianma could not help but fall into the old habits of some sect leaders. She smiled sweetly. Fellow Taoist, where are you from? Do you have any sect roots? I'm just an itinerant cultivator with no sect roots. Jiang Tian replied concisely. Jiang Tian did not mention his background. However, Saint Qianma was not a fool and did not ask further. She said sincerely, Fellow Taoist, as the saying goes, a single strand of silk cannot form a thread and a single tree cannot form a forest. Although itinerant cultivators are carefree, They do not have any disciples and subordinates. There are many chores that they have to do personally, and it's a waste of time. Secondly, there are no friends who can compare notes with you. You can only understand the confusion of a mortal cultivation by yourself. Therefore, it's better to join a sect. Fellow Taoist, why don't you join our Luoying sect? I'll personally recommend you to the sect master and guarantee that you can become an elder. At the side, Sima Tu's eyes were red with jealousy and his cheeks were twitching. He had cultivated bitterly for 500 to 600 years in the Luoying sect, and was only a personal disciple of an elder. To become an elder, one had to be the outer sect hallmaster and inner sect hallmaster. If everything went well, it would take at least another 500 to 600 years before he could become an elder. However, Jiang Tian had only been a servant in the Luoying sect for dozens of days and Saint Qianma was already recommending him to be an elder. Seeing that Jiang Tian did not reject immediately, Saint Qianma said even more fervently, "Fellow Taoist, don't worry. The so-called elder doesn't have to worry about much of the sect's affairs. It's more of a deterrent and you can completely focus on cultivation." Hearing that, Jiang Tian shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Thank you for your kindness, fellow Taoist. I appreciate your kind intentions, but that's not my ambition." At the side, Sima Tu was stunned. "Rejected? I guarantee that the treatment given by my sect will definitely surpass that of any other archaean sacred grounds." Saint Qianma did not give up and emphasized again. "No, when I said that my ambition doesn't lie here, I meant the entire Saint Origin world. Once this matter is over, I will leave Saint Origin world and travel to the universe," Jiang Tian said with a smile. "I see." Although Saint Qianma felt regretful, she couldn't say anything more. Jiang Tian's vision was not limited to this continent at all. At this moment, Jiang Tian gave her an incomparably mysterious and unfathomable feeling, making her sigh at her own inferiority. "However, as long as I'm still alive, I will come back. If Senior needs it, I will help. If the Luoying sect is facing a calamity of extermination, I will save them once," Jiang Tian said indifferently. Although Lian Huahan was only using Huang Linger as a bargaining chip in exchange for a marriage alliance with the sect, Saint Qianma had helped Huang Linger many times and made decisions for her. Jiang Tian had always been clear about kindness and grudges. He would always repay kindness. He would remember this favor. "Thank you." At this moment, Saint Qianma didn't doubt the relationship between Jiang Tian and Huang Linger. However, she was naturally very grateful and happy to receive Jiang Tian's promise. The flying boat was very fast. After a few hours, they arrived at the large flying boat of the Luoying sect. Jiang Tian and the others had just stepped out of the flying boat. The Yachang Emperor flew out from the hall, emitting a torrential imperial aura as he shouted majestically, "Little brat, how dare you be disrespectful to me and insult me? Now kneel before me." Behind him, Lian Huahan accompanied him. The Iron Hand Saint was holding the line as they stared at Jiang Tian. Obviously, the Yachang Emperor came prepared and had been waiting for him for a long time. "You're courting death." Jiang Tian's eyes were cold. The Yachang Emperor, Jiang Tian didn't put him in his eyes at all. Although the Black Moon Empire and the Eastern Empire were neighbors, Jiang Tian didn't think that they would threaten the Eastern Empire. The Starfire Academy had the cultivation techniques he left behind, and the selection system would also stimulate the potential of the commoners. The overall national strength would become stronger and stronger. He believed that in 100 years, the Black Moon Empire would be lucky if it wasn't swallowed by the Eastern Empire. Therefore, Jiang Tian didn't plan to kill him. With another threat, it would make the Eastern Empire work harder. However, if he really wanted to court death, Jiang Tian wouldn't be polite. "Reckless thing, you're just an odd job worker. Do you think the Luoying sect will protect you?" The Yachang Emperor mocked. Saint Qianma frowned when she heard this. She sent a message with her divine consciousness. "Lady Qianma, this child's origin is mysterious and his strength is amazing. We can't underestimate him. We have to protect him and leave him a favor. In the future, he'll benefit from it." "Sage, are you muddle-headed? He's just a servant. What's so great about him?" Lian Huahan looked at Jiang Tian with disdain, and sent a message with her divine consciousness. It's not worth offending the Yachang Emperor for him. Lady Qianma, if you don't listen to me, you'll regret it. Saint Qianma wanted to persuade her again. However, Lian Huahan glanced at Jiang Tian coldly. You damned handyman, have you forgotten the rules that I told you? Be careful with your words and actions. Don't offend cultivators. Now that you've caused a disaster, you have to bear the consequences. In fact, the reason why she insisted was not only because she didn't care about Jiang Tian's life, but also because she disliked Saint Qianma. Lian Huahan always felt that Saint Qianma liked to order people around. She thought that she was a saint and had enough experience. She even went to a remote star system like the Milky Way to train. Saint Qianma didn't have the right to make decisions for her. The Yachang Emperor shouted coldly. Now come with me. I'm going to teach you a lesson. Jiang Tian said with disdain. You want to take me away? You don't want to teach me a lesson. You want to take away the flaming red frog I caught. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Hearing this, Lian Huahan looked at Jiang Tian in shock. How could a mere mortal servant catch the fiery red clam? She looked at Saint Qianma again. Saint Qianma just smiled helplessly. She immediately understood that it was true. This ordinary-looking middle-aged man was definitely an expert. He even caught the flaming red frog. At this moment, she couldn't help but regret. If she didn't give the Yachang Emperor face just now, it would be very easy for her to come up with an excuse to take the frog. However, she had just said that she would let the Yachang Emperor take it away. If she denied it now, it would seem that she was going back on her words. After all, the Luoying sect was an orthodox sect. The cultivators also regarded them as the pillar of Saint Origin world. The Yachang Emperor's thoughts were exposed, but he was still not ashamed. So what? You dare to insult me? That's a capital offense. A toad in exchange for your lowly life, you should be grateful. Hand it over. The demonic qi in the no-man's land was very dense. He didn't directly see how Jiang Tian caught the flaming red frog. However, the Iron Hand Saint was also an old bird. He had explored this place several times and found that the flaming red frog had entered the no-man's land. Then, his divine sense sensed that Jiang Tian had returned from the no-man's land where the heaven-carrying demonic ape was. Moreover, there was a slight fluctuation of the flaming red frog's law on his body. Therefore, he immediately deduced that Jiang Tian might have caught the frog. Originally, the Yachang Emperor had wanted to forget about this matter, because he had lost a lot of soldiers to capture Jiang Tian. After all, his ultimate goal was to explore and seize the treasure. However, when they heard the news, they immediately came to the flying ship of the Luoying sect to force Lian Huahan to take Jiang Tian away and punish him. Lian Huahan didn't know the inside story, so she naturally wouldn't stop them. What if I don't obey? Jiang Tian said calmly. Then I'll kill you. The Yachang Emperor shouted. Suddenly, an endless murderous aura shot up to the sky. It was as if it could kill all living things and destroy the world. Chapter 2046. Although Jiang Tian had escaped from the territory of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, and although Jiang Tian had captured the flaming red toad, the Yachang Emperor did not think that Jiang Tian was more powerful than him. Later, a few cultivators who had escaped from the heaven-carrying demonic ape's hands also explained. Jiang Tian had not made a move from the beginning to the end. Everyone had died in the hands of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, but the demonic ape had not attacked Jiang Tian at all. After hearing the news, the Yachang Emperor and the Iron Hand Saint had a long discussion. In the end, they agreed that Jiang Tian knew the habits of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, but he might not be very powerful. Otherwise, he would not have lured everyone into the territory of the demonic ape. He could have killed them directly. It was because they thought that Jiang Tian was not very powerful and treated him as a fat sheep. Otherwise, they would not have dared to come and snatch him. You. Jiang Tian smiled contemptuously and said, "Get out of here before I get angry. Otherwise, I will kill you. Not to mention you, even your master is just an ant in my eyes." As soon as he said that, the whole place fell into dead silence. Everyone looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief, as if they were looking at a lunatic. Even the Iron Hand Saint raised his eyebrows and looked at Jiang Tian. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well, as if he was looking at an ant. You don't know what's good for you. How dare you talk so arrogantly? Don't you know who you are talking to? You are too arrogant. Do you think you are so great just because you caught the toad and scared the demonic ape with some tricks? Yes, in the end, the competition between cultivators is still a competition of strength. Talking is not enough. Many cultivators laughed at him. Torture him well. Don't kill him immediately. Hearing that, the Yachang Emperor was furious, but he soon calmed down and said with a cruel smile, I want him to know the consequences of being an enemy of the Black Moon Empire. At this time, the Divine Transformation Realm Guards of the Yachang Emperor sneered coldly. One of the Divine Transformation Realm Guards stepped forward with a cruel look in his eyes. You have indeed concealed your cultivation, but upon closer inspection, your cultivation is merely at the nascent soul stage. If we attack a nascent soul cultivator together, we'll be bullying you. This lord can take care of you by myself. What do you want to do now? Perhaps, this lord can even lessen the pain before your death. Although he said that, he did not show any mercy. His Dao artifact shone brightly as it flew towards Jiang Tian. Scram! Jiang Tian shouted. His figure flashed, and his whole person soared into the sky, crashing towards the other party. The Divine Transformation Realm Guard captain had a mocking expression on his face. Using his physical body to collide with his Dao artifact was tantamount to courting death. However, with a clang, the Dao artifact shattered. Pa! Blood rained down from the sky, and broken bones sparkled. In the blink of an eye, the guard captain was struck by Jiang Tian, and he was like a weak infant that was smashed by a heavy hammer. He was instantly smashed into meat paste, and his shattered body shot out in all directions. Protect the Emperor! The other guards were startled. They shouted, and several Dao artifacts and dozens of true artifacts attacked Jiang Tian together. This guy is so strange. Even the Iron Hand Saint, whose eyes were as calm and indifferent as an ancient well, had a slight change in his expression as he let out a soft cry of surprise. He had never thought that Jiang Tian would be able to crush a Divine Transformation Realm cultivator, when he was only at the nascent soul stage. You're courting death. Jiang Tian let out a loud roar. His cultivation base rose steadily, and his aura soared to the sky. At first, Jiang Tian had planned to hide his cultivation and not use his trump card until the last moment, in case the giant in the 9 heavens sensed it. That was why he had used the heaven-carrying demon ape to ambush Yin Nanxian and the others. But at this moment, Emperor Yachang was forcing him, and Jiang Tian was not a pushover. How could he tolerate it? If he killed them, then so be it. He could just forge another identity after he got out. In his fury, Jiang Tian did not use any techniques. Instead, he used his physical strength to charge forward. However, the chaotic godly body was far too terrifying. It was like the most vicious weapon. It was extremely heavy and unstoppable. Ah! Help! Get out of the way! Screams and screams were heard one after another. One by one, the guards exploded like a string of firecrackers. Their armors, shields and Dharma artifacts were all shattered. They could not withstand a single blow. In the blink of an eye, dozens of guards died, including 7 or 8 Divine Transformation Realm Guards. Such a change stunned everyone who saw it. There were no moves, no Dharma spells, no power of the Grand Tao, no Dharma laws. It was purely his body, but it was invincible. He forcefully crushed all the enemies in his way, especially Lian Huahan and the others from the Luoying sect. They were shocked and felt a little scared. Along the way, Jiang Tian had been showing up as a mortal servant. In their eyes, he was just an ordinary person who knew a little about alchemy and could repair Dharma artifacts. Thus, many disciples also did not mince words towards Jiang Tian, ordering him around here and there. But now, if this person wanted to take revenge, not many people could withstand his thunderous attack. Damn it! The Yachang Emperor stared at Jiang Tian with a hint of fear in his eyes. It was as if he had seen a demon, and a chill ran down his spine. form the Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation. The Iron Hand Saint was also shocked by Jiang Tian, but he quickly regained his composure and shouted. The Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation could combine everyone's cultivation as one. The power of the formation was comparable to that of a sage. The Iron Hand Saint did not believe it at all. Jiang Tian was just a nascent soul realm cultivator. Even if he drank the blood of a perfected immortal, he could not have the strength of a void return sage. Formed the formation. Many guards immediately reacted. As they retreated and distanced themselves from Jiang Tian, they changed positions and formed a battle formation. They were well trained and orderly, and their arrangement seemed to be in accordance with some kind of heavenly Tao. Jiang Tian stopped for the first time, and looked at the battle formation with interest. Haha, the Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation is powerful and intimidating. Although this person is arrogant, he doesn't dare to do something like throwing an egg at a rock. He's afraid in the end. Seeing Jiang Tian stop, the Yachang Emperor thought that Jiang Tian was afraid. He could not help but feel smug and sneered. If I didn't stop, would this bullshit Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation have a chance to be formed? As soon as Jiang Tian said that, arrogant, the Yachang Emperor was like a cat whose tail was stepped on when his ancestral formation was mocked. He flew into a rage. Could it be that this lad is so daring that he has the strength of a saint? However, the Iron Hand Saint was stunned and his heart suddenly turned cold, because he understood that Jiang Tian's words were not empty bravado, and every single one of them was reasonable. His movement technique was indeed faster than those soul formation and nascent soul realm cultivators. If he didn't do it on purpose, the battle formation would not have been formed. However, before he could react, Jiang Tian had already swayed and slashed at the Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation like a peerless heavenly blade. At this time, the Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation was truly activated. Thousands of nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators were wearing shining armors. Powerful Dharma power waves gathered like streams into an ocean, forming the image of a benevolent Emperor Ming above the battle array. Chapter 2047. The shadow of Emperor Ming was over 1,000 feet tall. He wore a crown and an emperor's robe. He was majestic and skilled in both civil and martial arts. He held a long saber in his hand and raised it high. Then he slashed it at Jiang Tian. This slash contained the power of exorcism and exorcism. It was powerful enough to kill a saint. In less than a second, the two sides collided violently. At the moment of collision, everyone had the illusion that time and space had come to a standstill. After a few seconds, time resumed its flow. A loud bang was heard. First, the demon exorcism saber in Emperor Ming's hand cracked and fell apart. It floated in the air like a stream of light. Then the force spread. His arms, body, and head also fell apart like pieces of paper. The surging waves of dharmic power directly destroyed the battle formation below. He broke the formation with one strike. He's so powerful. How terrifying. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with awe. Their hearts were in a state of chaos and disbelief. He has become so powerful? Huang Linger couldn't help but feel shocked and overjoyed. She knew that Jiang Tian was Imperial Advisor Xiqing. When he was in the Eastern Empire, his hands were stained with blood. He had the power to kill gods and saints. However, hearing about it was one thing. Seeing it with her own eyes was another thing. After all, she had not seen Jiang Tian fight since she parted ways with Jiang Tian on Earth. Now that she saw it for the first time, the psychological impact was unimaginable. Lian Huahuan's beautiful eyes were wide open. Her face was filled with disbelief. A saint. She could not help but regret it. She did not see that this person was a powerhouse at the level of a giant. Therefore, she was persuaded by Emperor Yachang with a few words. She did not care whether he lived or died, and let Yachang do whatever she wanted. If she had seen through Jiang Tian's capabilities, or if she had stuck to her principles, or if she had been less arrogant and not so headstrong, she would have listened to Saint Qianma's earnest advice and would not have offended Jiang Tian. If she could keep Jiang Tian in the Luoying sect, she would have another powerful pillar of support. After all, There were only a few dozen saints in the entire Saint origin world. They were extremely rare and important. This is the Emperor Ming's demon-destroying formation. Even Saint Qianma was shocked. Her face was full of shock and her delicate body trembled. Although she knew that Jiang Tian was strong, she did not expect him to be this strong. She was afraid that the Emperor Ming's Demon Buster formation would be broken. As expected, after Jiang Tian destroyed Emperor Ming's shadow, his momentum did not diminish at all. Like a peerless heavenly blade cutting open the earth, he split the entire battle formation apart in an instant. Countless cultivators were sent flying like paper shredded in the wind. Some of them even turned into a bloody mist on the spot. Flesh and blood rained down, and fragments of armors and artifacts shot out. Smash it! Seeing Jiang Tian charging at him with unstoppable momentum, he roared and took out a Saint Artifact-grade shield. This shield came from the inheritance of the first emperor, and could withstand several full-powered attacks from Return to Void stage saints. He had refined it with his blood essence for several decades, and it was his natal Dharma artifact. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to control it. The shield could be used for both offense and defense. It immediately shrank to the size of a millstone, then whistled through the air toward Jiang Tian. Bam! Under Jiang Tian's attack, the shield immediately flew diagonally and lost control. Several cracks appeared on it. Jiang Tian's momentum did not diminish as he continued to charge toward the Yachang Emperor. The Yachang Emperor flipped his right hand and took out a Saint Artifact-grade mirror. However, at this moment, he was already frightened by Jiang Tian. Therefore, he let out a frantic cry for help. "Master, save me." His voice carried a clear sobbing tone. The emperor of a large country, how ruthless and tenacious, how cold-hearted, but under Jiang Tian's tyrannical suppression, he was actually like a bullied child, on the verge of tears. "Fellow Taoist, please stop." In fact, he did not need to say anything. The Iron Hand Saint had already made his move. He stretched out his right hand, which covered the sky and the sun. Like a falling mountain, he grabbed at Jiang Tian's head. This giant palm was really terrifying. It was completely condensed from the laws of the Great Tao. It was extremely heavy and majestic. Even an early-stage Void Return expert would find it difficult to deal with it. However, Jiang Tian did not want to take it head-on. This was the first time he used it. The Kuan-Peng Divine Law filled his entire body. His body was strong and flexible like a dragon. It was as if he could split the heaven and earth, split yin and yang, and broke through space. In a flash, he appeared beside the Yachang Emperor. "You dare to kill me? I am the emperor of a country. If you kill me, you will become the enemy of the entire country." The Yachang Emperor roared fiercely. "Idiot!" Jiang Tian reached out with his right hand and grabbed onto his head like a steel hook. Then his head and spine were pulled out of his body in an instant. Blood splattered. The Yachang Emperor's eyes were wide open. He did not even have the chance to scream. "A mere Black Moon Empire is not qualified to threaten me." Jiang Tian casually threw his head aside and said slowly. At this moment, the entire scene was silent. Everyone held their breath and did not even dare to breathe loudly. All the surrounding cultivators were deeply shocked by this scene. They could not help but feel a chill down their spines and their hair stood on end. At this moment, when Jiang Tian's gaze swept across, all the cultivators present shuddered in unison. No one would have thought that this seemingly depressed and ordinary middle-aged man in front of them would be so decisive and ruthless in killing. At this moment, everyone's impression of him had changed. To be honest, when Jiang Tian rebelled against the Yachang Emperor, many cultivators thought that he was reckless and arrogant. However, at this moment, everyone realized that he was not arrogant. He originally had the strength to do so. Moreover, he was a peerless, fierce person. It was just that he kept a low profile and did not like to cause trouble. At this moment, many people's scalps went numb. He even killed an emperor. How domineering and ferocious was this? For a moment, many people were so scared that they retreated more than 100 miles. They were afraid that Jiang Tian would go crazy and bring disaster to them. Among the crowd, only the people from the Eastern Empire were ecstatic. The Yachang Emperor is dead. God has opened his eyes. A sweet smile appeared on Princess Mou's pretty face. Her heart relaxed, as if a big stone had been removed from her. The Yachang Emperor was very evil, but he wanted to pursue her. Mou could not determine what this kid was going to do next. She felt as if she was being stared at by a poisonous snake. She was both afraid and disgusted. Princess Royal Yachang is dead. I can guarantee that at least for 100 years, the Black Moon Empire will not have the strength to attack our country. Fang Goyu was also overjoyed and smiled like a flower. Yes. Mou nodded with a smile. However, Lin Yang touched his chin and looked at Jiang Tian's figure, revealing a thoughtful expression. Don't you think that this person is somewhat similar to an old friend of ours? Could it be him? After Lin Yang's reminder, Fang Goyu's mind seemed to light up like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the fog. It's really him. The more Mou looked, the more similar it seemed. She had been bitterly searching for Jiang Tian for several years, but there was no trace of him. She had been in despair. At this moment, seeing Jiang Tian for the first time, her heart could not help but feel sweet and sour. Unknowingly, her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Chapter 2048. However, they were all very smart. They knew that if Jiang Tian was hiding his identity, he must have his reasons. Therefore, no one exposed him. I will kill you. Seeing this, the Iron Hand Saint couldn't help but be enraged. He took out a sacred weapon and attacked wildly, wanting to kill Jiang Tian. The Iron Hand Saint was flustered and exasperated at this moment. His beloved disciple had been killed in front of him. What a great humiliation! Moreover, his relationship with Yachang had been very deep over the years. They were like father and son. His beloved disciple's death was even more painful to him. He was determined to avenge his beloved disciple. The veteran saint attacked in anger. He was already at the mid-stage Void Return realm. How terrifying was that? He was much stronger than the sect master of the Aoshi sect, Suzha, and the others. He could be considered a big shot on this continent. Boom. Even though Jiang Tian had used the speed of the Kuan Prung, he couldn't dodge in time, and was sent flying by the sacred weapon. He crashed through mountain after mountain. After flying for dozens of kilometers, he crashed into something and created a mushroom cloud before coming to a stop. At that instant, many cultivators wore pained looks on their faces, and inhaled deeply. This was a veteran saint attacking with his full strength with a sacred weapon. Even a body made of great Dao treasure metal would be shattered. This kid can be considered a genius, but he's too arrogant and doesn't know when to stop. Lian Huahan shook her head regretfully and disdainfully. At this moment, the expressions of eldest Princess Mou, Fang Goyu, and the others changed drastically. Huang Linger turned pale with fright and almost screamed out loud. Almost everyone was sure that Jiang Tian would die without a doubt. His chances of survival were slim. Old coffin board, this is a grudge between us. I will kill you. Boom. Rocks flew into the air. In the distance, Jiang Tian soared into the sky and shouted with a murderous aura. Upon closer inspection, there were only some superficial wounds on his body. There were no injuries at all. Most importantly, his spirit embryo and nascent soul were unharmed and could circulate freely. He's actually not dead. Could it be a legendary sacred nascent soul? No, I'm afraid it's an immortal nascent soul. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. How is this possible? Even Lian Huahuan's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. A nascent soul cultivator was actually able to survive the attack of a veteran sage. This was too inconceivable. Not only did it have to be at the great circle of the nascent soul realm, it also had to be of an extremely high grade. But he didn't know. Even if it was just a superficial wound, Jiang Tian was already furious. Ever since he reached the peak of the nascent soul stage, this was the first time he suffered such a huge loss. Even if he were to be defeated by a veteran sage of the return to void intermediate stage, he still couldn't accept it. Reckless fool. His bones are pretty tough, he actually didn't die. The Iron Hand Saint shouted as he withdrew his saint weapon, wanting to attack again. Saint Qianma's body swayed and shielded Jiang Tian behind her. She shouted, Iron Hand Saint, stop. This mister is my sex odd job worker, and he is not someone you can kill as you please. You casually kill people. Could it be that you don't put my Luoing sect in your eyes? Clang. As she spoke, she also took out a saint weapon and prepared to fight to the death. You. The Iron Hand Saint was exasperated. Qianma, you're willing to become enemies with me just to protect a nameless scoundrel? So what if I fight? Saint Qianma didn't give an inch. The Yachang Emperor was obviously here for the fiery red toad, and was bullying the weak. As for Jiang Tian's crime of insulting him, that was just an excuse. Now he couldn't defeat Jiang Tian, and even used the Emperor Ming's Demon Buster formation. But he was still killed by Jiang Tian. He only had himself to blame. The Iron Hand Saint still wanted to attack. He only cared about strength and not morality. Since the other party was so shameless, Saint Qianma naturally chose to fall out with the other party without hesitation. Just as the Iron Hand Saint hesitated, Princess Mou also stepped forward and said, I can testify that this mister only said that the Yachang Emperor and I are not compatible. He didn't disrespect him and was just trying to persuade him. Emperor Yachang came here to pick a fight. It's obvious that he's here to seize the treasure. Not only did she move, but the entire army of the Eastern Empire also moved. They formed a battle formation, and their murderous intent soared to the sky. Fang Jinlong, Lin Hanqing and the other Soul Formation Grand Cultivators were all ready to attack. Senior Iron Hand, the Yachang Emperor killed you for the treasure. He was just trying to frame you. Now that he's dead, who can he blame? Fang Jinlong sneered. Apparently, he was on Jiang Tian's side and wanted to fight to the death with the Iron Hand Saint. Well, the Iron Hand Saint was stunned. He didn't expect that not only Saint Qianma, but also the overlords of the Eastern Empire were on Jiang Tian's side. He was now alone, and he only had a 50% chance of winning if he fought against Saint Qianma. With the Eastern Empire, his chances of winning were slim. Senior Iron Hand, the dead can't come back to life. I'm sorry for your loss. While he was stunned, Lin Yang persuaded him softly to further weaken his fighting spirit and killing intent. Lin Hanqing secretly said with his immortal will, Senior Iron Hand, the Yachang Emperor is dead. The Black Moon Empire will be in chaos, and the people won't be able to make a living. How would they have the time to provide you with cultivation resources? Why don't you join our Starfire Academy? The reward will be increased by 1 generation. Hearing this, the Iron Hand Saint's eyes lit up and his killing intent slowly receded. The Iron Hand Saint was similar to the Grand Tutor. At the end of the day, he was still bound by benefits and didn't have deep emotional ties. In other words, even if he had emotional ties, they were secondary to benefits. So what if he killed Jiang Tian to avenge the Yachang Emperor? What benefits could he get? The biggest difference between cultivators and mortals was that they were extremely rational. They were rarely emotional and used the pros and cons as the yardstick. Besides, it was easy to kill Jiang Tian. All he had to do was leave a divine sense mark and follow him to kill him. There was no need to provoke everyone at this time and put himself in a passive position. Forget it. I was too impulsive. Since everyone is pleading for you, I'll give everyone face and spare your life. Besides, no matter how good your foundation is and how high the grade of your nascent soul is, you're still just a nascent soul. I'm crossing 2 levels to suppress you. Isn't that bullying? The Iron Hand Saint shook his head and sighed, pretending to be magnanimous. He had a look of, I won't lower myself to your level. Jiang Tian's face was as cold as iron. He looked at the Iron Hand Saint's performance coldly and didn't say a word. To be honest, even if he was at the peak of the nascent soul realm, he could fight against a saint at level 1 or level 2 of the Void Return realm. However, it was extremely difficult to fight against a level 3 of the Void Return realm. After all, there was the suppression of levels. At this time, he had no chance of winning against the Iron Hand Saint. If they really fought, he might be obliterated. However, he had to avenge this attack. Your foundation is good. I didn't kill you because of my love for talent. I hope you can uphold justice in the future and become the pillar of this continent. The Iron Hand Saint was extremely hypocritical. He put on the demeanor of an honest elder and earnestly taught him. Thank you for not killing me, senior. I'll remember your teachings. It was my fault for killing the Yachang Emperor just now. Jiang Tian retracted his killing intent and bowed apologetically, looking repentant. Who didn't know how to act? Boom. Right at this moment, in the deepest part of the canyon, the place known as the Demon Tide area, an earth-shattering sound rang out. The earth trembled and the mountains shook. It was as if an inexplicable existence had awakened. It was an extremely terrifying and ominous aura. Everyone looked over at the same time and saw a shocking scene. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.